Chapter 43. The three dragon riders clashed with Chu Zongguang and the others. Chu Xiao stood far away, watching with cold eyes. Chu Xiao had never considered the Chu clan as his own, so even if the Chu clan was exterminated, he wouldn't feel any heartache. Therefore, he was still in the mood to observe the details of a fight between martial artists above the Xiantian realm, accumulating some martial arts experience for himself. Among the three dragon riders, one of them went to kill the old, weak, sick, and servants of the Chu clan. It was a completely one-sided massacre. Nothing worth watching. What was truly worth watching was the fight between the other two and Chu Zongguang and Shen Mo. The two dragon riders were at the inner aura realm of the fifth layer of the Imperial Qi realm, but looking at the strength of their attacks, in addition to what they had said before, Chu Xiao guessed that they had reached the inner aura realm more than 20 years ago. It was only because they were severely injured from the punishment that their foundations were injured, so they hadn't made any progress in the past 20 years, and their strength had even declined a bit. But even if their strength had declined, they were still at the inner aura realm, stronger than Chu Zongguang and Shen Mo. The martial artist with the whip mark on his face wielded a red sleeve blade. In fact, his martial arts were wide and broad, and the red sleeve blade itself was a thin blade, not suitable for his martial arts. But the red sleeve blade was extremely sharp, and in just a few moves, it cut Chu Zongguang's long sword in half. Chu Zongguang's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. Over the years, he had dreamed of the dragon riders coming to capture him countless times, so he had prepared a few trump cards over the years. The moment his sword was cut in half, Chu Zongguang immediately took out a blood-red pill and threw it into his mouth. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood, causing the cultivator with the whip scar on his face to be caught off guard. His eyes were stained with a bloody mist. But this bit of blood mist made him let out a mournful howl, and blood flowed from his eyes. It's the 5-poison sex blood transformation pill. The martial artist with the whip mark on his face covered his eyes and retreated, his face full of panic. The 5-poison cult cultivated poison arts, and the blood transformation divine pill was a secret pill of the 5-poison cult. To the people of the 5-poison cult, it was a great supplement, but to other martial artists, it was a deadly poison. Chu Zongguang immediately threw another dark green pill into his mouth. This was the antidote to the blood transformation dan. This kind of method hurt others and hurt oneself. Even if there was an antidote, Chu Zongguang's body was still poisoned and his foundation was injured. Taking advantage of this person's blinded eyes, Chu Zongguang continued to attack. What he used was not the martial skills of the Chu family, but the battle formation technique he had learned from the Dragon Rider Imperial Army. His attacks were incomparably vicious. Taking advantage of the enemy's blinded eyes and the poison attacking his heart, Chu Zongguang was able to shatter the martial artist's heart meridians in just a few moves, killing him on the spot. Second brother. The warrior who was sent to kill the Chu clan members had just returned when he saw this scene. His eyes immediately turned red. He had never thought that his second brother, who had always been cautious, would actually fail miserably at Chu Zongguang's hands. After searching for more than 20 years, he had finally found his enemy. He never thought that just as he was about to take his revenge, he would accidentally die here. Chu Xiao coldly watched all of this, feeling a bit of understanding in his heart. In a battle between martial artists, unless one had overwhelming strength, there were all sorts of methods that could be used. There were simply too many unexpected situations, and if one wasn't careful, they could be killed by someone weaker than them. For example, when Chu Xiao first fought with Li Zhong had used the subduing tiger staff to the point of perfection, completely suppressing Chu Xiao. But because of external factors, Li Zhong had become impatient and died at the hands of Chu Xiao. Now, the warrior with the whip scar on his face was the same. The weapon in his hand was powerful, and his cultivation level was also a level higher than Chu Zongguang. But because of the excitement of getting his revenge, his vigilance was lowered, which was why Chu Zongguang's sneak attack was successful, and he was killed instead. Another martial artist charged towards him with a spear in his hand. This time, Chu Zongguang could only barely resist. He did not have a second blood transformation divine pill, moreover, this method would not work a second time. Chu Zongguang shouted at Shen Mo, who was still struggling, "Patriarch Shen, if you have a trump card, hurry up and use it. If you don't take it out now, it will be too late." Shen Mo's identity as the patriarch of the Shen clan wasn't worth mentioning, but his other identity was the younger brother of Azure Water Sword Sex Falling Rain Sword, Shen Bai. With this identity, How could Shen Mo have a life-saving trump card that Shen Bai gave him? Shen Mo's expression was uncertain. He felt that he was the most unlucky one in today's matter. Chu Zongguang was the one who committed the sin, but in the end, he was implicated. Who did he offend? But in fact, if Shen Mo thought deeper, this time, if it wasn't for Shen Rong threatening Chu Xiao wouldn't have killed him. And if Shen Mo's attitude wasn't so arrogant and overbearing, forcing Chu Zongguang to cripple Chu Xiao wouldn't have taken the risk to attract these 3 Dragon Rider Imperial Army members. This was the cycle of karma. Shen Mo was courting death this time. But now that things had come to this, Shen Mo felt that he couldn't hold on any longer, and he finally began to panic. At this moment, Shen Mo suddenly thought of something, and his eyes revealed a smear of surprise. When the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member forced him into a corner, Shen Mo immediately took out a short sword from his bosom. With a thrust of the sword, Shen Mo's complexion instantly turned pale. The short sword unceasingly extracted qi from within his body, transforming it into a sharp sword light that was several feet long. The speed was incomparably fast, and it actually cut the long spear in the hands of the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member in front of him into 2. Dipper qi. How is this possible? The Dragon Rider Imperial Army member that was fighting with Chu Zongguang immediately turned pale with fright. Only martial artists that had reached the physical invulnerability realm could transform qi into Dipper qi. This was common knowledge. But now, a Xiantian martial artist was actually able to slash out a sword light with Dipper qi, and with such formidable might. This was simply impossible. Xiantian martial artists obviously couldn't use Dipper qi, and the reason why Shen Mo was able to do this was because of the short sword in his hand. This short sword was the sword of a senior elder of the Azure Water Sword sect when he was young. Although he didn't use it anymore, it was still nurtured by that elder to have an extremely strong sword intent. For a regular martial artist, as long as they had enough strength to activate it, the sword intent within the short sword would guide the strength and transform it into a sword light. However, this short sword was after all an ordinary 3rd advancement weapon, and its sturdiness was average. Although it contained sword intent, it couldn't withstand too much direct force. Just a single slash had already caused a crack to appear on the surface, and it was estimated that it wouldn't be able to be used more than a few times. Therefore, this item was actually a consumable item, and was given by Shen Bai to Shen Mo to protect himself. On the other side, Chu Zongguang took advantage of this opportunity to forcefully attack with all his might, and actually slightly reversed the situation. Shen Mo wielded his sword and followed Chu Zongguang to surround and kill the last Dragon Rider Imperial Army member. But he didn't activate the sword light. He had already expended enough qi, and if he used another move, his qi would probably be completely exhausted. However, if he didn't use his trump card, even if the 2 of them ganged up on one person, they still wouldn't be able to defeat the opponent. Instead, they were forced to retreat step by the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member. Looking at the corpses of his 2 comrades on the ground, the last Dragon Rider Imperial Army member revealed a look of grief and hatred. He originally thought that he would be able to get his revenge this time, but he didn't expect Chu Zongguang to be so cunning, and that Shen Mo actually had such a terrifying trump card. He didn't know if Shen Mo's short sword could still be used, but he didn't dare to continue gambling. As such, the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member gritted his teeth and retreated, preparing to leave. However, seeing that the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member wanted to leave, Chu Zongguang began to panic. The other party already knew his true identity. Once he returned to Eastern Qi and reported his identity to the Dragon Rider Imperial Army, what awaited Chu Zongguang would be endless pursuit. He definitely couldn't let the other party leave alive. Chu Zongguang directly pressed forward, pushing the Chu clan's vast sea heart technique to its limit. With a few steps, he arrived behind the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member, and his palm struck towards the middle of his back. The Dragon Rider Imperial Army member didn't even turn his head. The spear in his hand seemed to have grown eyes. The tip of the spear trembled, and like a blossoming lotus, it shot straight towards Chu Zongguang. He originally wanted to force Chu Zongguang to retreat, but who knew that Chu Zongguang wouldn't even try to dodge. Instead, he forcibly gripped the spear. The powerful force immediately caused Chu Zongguang to spit out a mouthful of blood, but he still didn't let go. This made the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member immediately realize that things weren't looking good. He wanted to abandon the spear and retreat, but it was already too late. Do it! Chu Zongguang shouted at Shen Mo. Shen Mo raised the short sword in his hand and poured the last bit of his true qi into it. The sword light suddenly scattered down, but its target wasn't only the Dragon Rider Imperial Army member, but also Chu Zongguang. The sword light pierced through the two of them. Chu Zongguang looked at the terrifying wound on his chest in disbelief. He continuously spat out blood and struggled to ask, Why? Shen Mo expressionlessly said, That is a treasure that even the second prince of Eastern Qi wants. I also want it. Today, everyone had died here. Even if he stole something that originally belonged to the second prince of Eastern Qi, who would know? Perhaps if he obtained that item, he would no longer have to look up to his older brother, Shen Bai. Instead, Shen Bai would have to look up to him. Chapter 44. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. Right now, Shen Mo had this feeling. Previously, he was thinking about how unlucky he was to be implicated in this matter. He didn't expect Chu Zongguang to be able to kill a Dragon Rider Imperial Guard. This gave Shen Mo a new idea. No matter what it was, 20 years ago, when the second prince of Eastern Qi sent the Dragon Rider Imperial Guard to snatch it, Chu Zongguang became greedy and betrayed his brothers. He didn't even hesitate to leave his home with his family. This was enough to prove the value of that item. And now, that item belonged to him. But at this moment, a slight mechanical sound could be heard. Shen Mo subconsciously turned his head and saw Chu Xiu's thousand-chance sect hidden weapon, thousand-leaf plume. In an instant, countless leaves rained down. It was incomparably magnificent, bringing with it a resplendent killing intent. Shen Mo's eyes widened in shock. He didn't forget about Chu Xiu, but he didn't expect that in a fight of this level, a blood condensation realm martial artist like Chu Xiu would actually dare to make a move. And where did he get the hidden weapon in his hand? This was a hidden weapon that could threaten a Xiantian realm martial artist. Shen Mo hurriedly raised his sword to block. But at this moment, the short sword in his hand had become extremely fragile after activating the sword light twice. After blocking a dozen thousand leaf plume, it actually shattered. And at this moment, a silver blade had already appeared in front of his eyes. This blade was extremely fast. By the time Shen Mo reacted, he could already smell the scent of blood on the blade. With his weapon shattered by the thousand-leaf plume, Shen Mo couldn't block it. He subconsciously wanted to dodge, but to his horror, he discovered that his movements were a little too slow. Because after using 2 sword lights, his qi had already been completely exhausted. You are courting death. There was no way to block, no way to dodge. At the moment of life and death, Shen Mo used his fingers as a sword, condensing all the qi and blood in his body into his index and middle fingers, causing these 2 fingers to carry a sliver of sharp sword qi as they pierced towards Chu Xiu's chest. Pulse-severing sword finger. This wasn't the Shen clan's martial arts, but the Azure Water Sword sect's martial arts. The Azure Water Sword sect was a sect that respected the sword, but it didn't mean that the Azure Water Sword sect didn't have any other martial arts. Shen Mo wasn't a disciple of the Azure Water Sword sect. Even if Shen Bai was the sect master's direct disciple, he didn't dare to impart the Azure Water Sword sect's esoteric sword arts to Shen Mo. Therefore, he only imparted the Pulse Break Sword Finger, which wasn't classified as esoteric, to Shen Mo to increase his strength. Although this meridian-severing finger sword did not contain much Shen qi, it was condensed with all the qi and blood of a Xiantian lord. If it hit, Shen Mo's 2 fingers would not be able to withstand such a powerful force and would directly explode. However, a bloody hole would also appear on Chu Xiu's chest. Shen Mo wanted to force Chu Xiu to retreat, but Chu Xiu's eyes were only calm and strong killing intent. As a blood condensation realm martial artist against a Xiantian, his first move was the Azure Dragon Sleeve. He only had this one chance. If he retreated, he would be defeated. Therefore, Chu Xiu's blade didn't deviate in the slightest, but his body suddenly tilted a little. Shen Mo's meridian-severing sword finger landed on his shoulder blade, and with a loud explosion, blood splattered everywhere. The flesh and blood on Shen Mo's 2 fingers exploded, while Chu Xiu's shoulder blade shattered. A bone-deep hole was blasted open. The blade slashed across, and Shen Mo's eyes were filled with boundless blood. Some of it was Chu Xiu's, and some of it was his own. After a single slash, his head fell to the ground. Chu Xiu clutched his shoulder, looked at Shen Mo's headless corpse, and spoke indifferently. That's right, everyone wants a treasure, and I too want it. The surroundings were silent, and the pungent smell of blood permeated the Chu clan. There wasn't a single living person in the entire Chu clan. Chu Xiu looked at his left shoulder. Although he had used his zhenqi to temporarily seal off his meridians, blood was still flowing out. His left arm was temporarily crippled. Chu Xiu didn't dare to tarry. 3 imperial dragon riders had died here, and even Shen Mo had died here. Chu Xiu could no longer stay in the Tongzhou prefecture, or rather, the entire Wei prefecture. The 3 imperial dragon riders each carried a box on their backs, and from the looks of it, it should be a treasure prepared for the second prince of Eastern Qi. Among them, the box of the warrior with the whip mark on his face contained the red sleeve blade. Chu Xiu didn't have time to take a closer look. He directly picked up the blade, carried the other 2 boxes on his back, and searched them one by one. However, the 3 imperial dragon riders only had a few taels of silver and common medicine on them, and nothing else of value. Chu Xiu also found 3 badges that belonged to the imperial dragon riders. After thinking for a moment, he also put them into his bosom. After doing all this, Chu Xiu didn't have time to tend to his injuries. He directly ran inside the Chu clan, to Chu Zongguang's courtyard, and began to frantically search for the treasure. For the sake of this item, the second prince of Eastern Qi had sent the experts of the imperial dragon riders to steal it. Chu Zongguang was willing to betray his brother for it, and Shen Mo could have used his dagger as a trump card to escape. However, he became greedy and ultimately left his life in the Chu clan. Just like what Chu Xiu had said, everyone wanted the treasure. Just now, he had ambushed Shen Mo and even risked his life. Wasn't it all for the treasure? However, after searching through Chu Zongguang's courtyard, whether it was his residence or Chu Zongguang's place of seclusion, there were no traces of the treasure. There were only a few large banknotes, about 500,000 taels of silver, and even 30 taels of purple gold. Purple gold was an extremely valuable type of metal. It could be used to forge weapons, forge swords, or even arrange formations. Therefore it was extremely precious. 100 taels of silver was equivalent to 1 tael of purple gold, and 100 taels of gold could only be exchanged for 1 tael of purple gold. However, none of these things were what Chu Xiu wanted. Where exactly did Chu Zongguang hide the treasure? Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something and immediately ran back to the front courtyard. From Chu Zongguang's corpse, he took out a white jade box, which was inscribed with a precious formation. Just now, Chu Xiu had subconsciously forgotten that if it was an ordinary treasure, Chu Zongguang would naturally find a safe place to put it. However, this was a treasure that Chu Zongguang had exchanged his life for, so he would definitely carry it with him. Otherwise, how could he feel at ease? Chu Xiu raised his head and looked at the sky. It was already past midnight, and with such a big movement in the Shin clan, it was hard to guarantee that the news wouldn't spread. Even though he knew that the Chu clan still had plenty of silver and cultivation resources, Chu Xiu didn't dare to delay any longer. But before he left, he still had to clean up the scene. If the 3 Dragon Rider Imperial Army members were dead, then so be it. This was the Northern Yan-Wei Commandery, not Eastern Qi. Furthermore, Chu Xiu had taken their waist tokens, and others might not be able to recognize his identity. But the crux of the problem was that Shen Mo had also died in the hands of Chu Xiu. If he didn't deal with it, and his older brother who had joined the Azure Watersword sect continued to investigate, Chu Xiu didn't have the confidence to conceal everything. Chu Xiu walked towards the firewood shed, where the Chu clan had prepared kerosene and firewood. He was going to burn down the Chu clan and end all troubles once and for all. But halfway through, Chu Xiu stopped and looked at the wound on his shoulder with a frown. The Shen clan members should know that Shen Mo had come to the Chu clan. The Tong province prefecture was only so big, and if he started a fire here, it would definitely attract the attention of the Shen clan. With one of his arms crippled, with his current condition, it would be difficult for him to even leave the city. After thinking for a moment, Chu Xiu quickly ran back to his previous residence in the Chu clan. He took out his old clothes and changed them into a servant's corpse that was similar in size to him. He threw his old goose feather blade beside the corpse, picked up one of the Dragon Rider Imperial Army's spear, and smashed it into the corpse's head. In an instant, red and white liquid splattered everywhere, and the corpse was no longer recognizable. Because these 3 Dragon Rider Imperial Army members hated Chu Zongguang, they were extremely vicious and cruel when dealing with Chu Zongguang's children. More than one of them had their heads blown off. After giving Shen Mo's corpse a look, Chu Xiu threw the already used 1,000-feather plume at the feet of the last Dragon Rider Imperial Army member. He also stuffed the dagger he had used to kill Shen Bai into the other's hand. He moved the 2 corpses a bit closer to each other, creating the illusion that they had died together. Time was of the essence, and there was no time for Chu Xiao to make any detailed arrangements. However, the Chu clan was already completely wiped out, and the dead could not tell the truth. An ordinary person should not be able to see any flaws. After doing all of this, Chu Xiao hurriedly bandaged his wounds, took a pill, and left the city under the cover of the night, fleeing into the barren mountains of the northern Mang Mountains. Chu Xiao did not go looking for Han Bao and the others. Right now, Chu Xiao did not trust anyone, including Han Bao, whom he had worked with before, and Ma Qua, whom he had a good relationship with. In the past, Chu Xiao was the second son of the Chu clan of the Tongzhou prefecture. With this identity, he could provide information and cooperate with Han Bao on equal terms. However, Chu Xiao was now a fugitive, and he had a precious treasure on him, so he could not trust anyone. Back then, Chu Zongguang had betrayed his brother for this treasure, let alone others. From Chu Xiao's point of view, strength was far more important than trust. The northern Mang Mountains were very large. Apart from a few small paths that led to the northern Yan side, where caravans and bandits gathered, the other places were all barren mountains. Chu Xiao randomly found a cave to temporarily stay in. After arriving at the cave, Chu Xiao directly threw everything aside and took out the treasure that Chu Zongguang regarded as his life. Just now, Chu Xiao did not carefully look at it, but now that he carefully looked at the array pattern on the jade box, it really did have the style of the West Chu side. The effect of the array was not to seal, but to protect the thing inside from external forces. Chu Xiao opened the jade box, and what appeared in front of Chu Xiao was a bit beyond his expectations. There was actually a living thing inside. Inside the jade box was a golden silkworm. No, to be more accurate, it was a strange golden silkworm that was emitting a golden glaze. It was only the size of a thumb, and its surface was transparent, emitting a glaze luster. If it was not gently wriggling inside the box, Chu Xiao would have suspected that it was a glaze ornament and not a living thing. Chu Xiao's mind was frantically trying to recall what this thing was. It was a treasure that came from the Miaojiang of West Chu. It was shaped like a golden silkworm, and its surface had a glaze luster. Its characteristics were so distinct that as long as it appeared in the original plot, there was no reason for Chu Xiao to forget it. After a moment, Chu Xiao finally found the origin of this thing from the memories of his previous life. He could not help but reveal a look of ecstasy. A treasure. This was definitely a treasure. This was a magical goo refined by the Miaojiang moon-worshipping cult. It was born from the glazed Buddha bone of the Great Light Temple's high monk. It was also a unique existence among the many goo worms. There was only one in the world, and it was the glazed golden silk goo that could rebirth a person. Chapter 45. Miaojiang's moon-worshipping cult had a great background. It was said that it was a branch of the Kunlun devil cult and was best at refining poisonous insects. Later on, the Kunlun devil cult declined and completely split, but moon-worshipping cult was still extremely powerful and was now one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. This so-called glass gold silk goo was a rare treasure that moon-worshipping cult had refined by chance. Legend had it that the demons of moon-worshipping cult had once besieged and killed an eminent monk from the Great Light Temple who had already refined the glass Buddha bone. They had placed several powerful Miaojiang goo worms in the glass Buddha bone to nurture. This was originally just an experiment by moon-worshipping cult to humiliate the people from the Great Light Temple, but they did not expect that by chance, the glass gold silk goo would be born in the glass Buddha bone. After that, the powerhouses from the Great Light Temple personally went to Miaojiang and fought with the demons of moon-worshipping cult in an attempt to take back the corpse. In the end, the glass gold silk goo was lost. However, the detailed information of the glass gold silk goo was recorded by moon-worshipping cult in hopes of having the opportunity to refine another glass gold silk goo. Unfortunately, although moon-worshipping cult had obtained the glass Buddha bone of the eminent monk from the Great Light Temple, for some reason, the glass gold silk goo was never refined again. If Chu Xiao's guess was correct, when the glass gold silk goo was lost, it should have been obtained by someone from another force. That was why the second prince of Eastern Qi sent people to snatch it, but they returned empty-handed. Moreover, in the end, whether the glass gold silk goo fell into the hands of the original Chu Xiao, or whether it was brought back to Eastern Qi by the 3 Dragon Riders' imperial guards and presented to the second prince was not something that Chu Xiao could know. Chu Xiao picked up the glass gold silk goo. The glass gold silk goo was obediently crawling slowly in Chu Xiao's hand. It was not as fierce as the other goo worms. Perhaps it was because it was born from the glass Buddha bone of an eminent Buddhist monk. Looking at the glass gold thread goo, Chu Xiu's lips could not help but reveal a mocking smile. If he guessed correctly, his cheap father, Chu Zongguang, had been trying to refine this glazed gold thread goo with his innate qi all these years. If Chu Xiu had to evaluate it, he would say that this behavior was really a country bumpkin. High-grade goods naturally had their uses, but Chu Zongguang had been using such a low-grade method to refine the glazed gold thread goo for so many years. Even if he used 100 years, he would not succeed. Perhaps Chu Zongguang had tried other methods, but they all failed in the end. But because he had risked his life to obtain this thing, it had become Chu Zongguang's obsession. He had bet the rest of his life on this glazed golden thread goo, and he would not give up until he achieved his goal. In the end, he was even a little crazy. Chu Xiu picked up the red sleeve blade, unbuttoned his clothes, and revealed his chest. He pointed the blade at his chest, and slowly cut open the flesh. The pain made Chu Xiu's face pale, but his hand holding the blade was still firm. After cutting open his chest, Chu Xiu placed the glazed gold thread goo at the edge of the blade. The glazed gold thread goo seemed to smell the smell of blood, and the glass was stained with a trace of blood. It began to crazily drill into Chu Xiu's chest. The endless pain suddenly made Chu Xiu groan in pain, and his head was instantly covered in sweat. The glazed gold thread goo directly drilled into Chu Xiu's chest, and it bit Chu Xiu's heart, sucking the blood from Chu Xiu's heart. But at the same time, strands of golden glazed Buddha light flowed along Chu Xiu's meridians. The wound on his chest began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the blood stopped flowing. Even the bloody hole on his shoulder that was poked by Shen Mo's vein-severing sword finger was rapidly recovering. The broken bone was coiled by the glazed gold thread, connecting the broken bone bit by bit. The pain disappeared, and Chu Xiu closed his eyes. A powerful force cleansed his body, and countless glazed gold thread burst out from his heart, covering Chu Xiu's body, as if this was the power that originated from his bloodline. Chu Xiu opened his eyes. He was afraid of attracting other people, so he only opened his mouth and laughed silently. Being able to quickly recover from injuries was only a small function of the glazed gold thread goo. The real function of the glazed gold thread goo was to let a martial artist be reborn. Even a cripple could become a genius with the help of the glazed gold thread goo. The glazed gold thread goo was the most special goo. All the goo refined by the moon-worshipping cult were extremely fierce and had strong killing power. Only the glazed gold thread goo did not have any attack power, and it could only grow by relying on human heart blood. Chu Zongguang tried to refine the glazed gold thread goo, but it was useless, because the glazed gold thread goo could not be refined by humans, and it could only coexist with humans. Just like now, Chu Xiu nurtured the glazed gold thread goo in his heart, and the glazed gold thread goo survived by sucking Chu Xiu's heart blood. At the same time, the glazed gold thread goo would also release its own power, helping the host to increase their cultivation speed. Of course, the effect of the increase also depended on the strength of the martial artist that coexisted with the glazed gold thread goo. The stronger the martial artist, the stronger their blood and qi, the faster the glazed gold thread goo would grow, and the more power it could provide. Chu Zongguang fantasized that he could reach the heavens in one step after refining the glazed gold thread goo, but he was overthinking it. The glazed gold thread goo was just a shortcut for him to reach the heavens. After putting on his clothes again, Chu Xiu's expression was calm. The secret of the glazed gold thread goo could not be known by outsiders. The glazed gold thread goo could not be refined, and could only coexist with humans. Because of this characteristic, if someone killed Chu Xiu and cut open his chest, they could still take out the glazed gold thread goo and use it for themselves. After coexisting with the glazed gold thread goo, Chu Xiu discovered that his strength had also skyrocketed to the peak of the blood condensation realm. The glazed gold thread goo was attached to Chu Xiu's heart, and the goo's own power spread through Chu Xiu's meridians through his blood. Under the concentration of power, Chu Xiu almost instantly reached the peak of the blood condensation realm, and he could even attempt to break through to the Xiantian realm. However, Chu Xiu was not in a hurry to cultivate. He first wanted to see what kind of good things he had taken from the 3 Dragon Riders' Imperial Army soldiers. The 3 of them had been out for so many years, collecting treasures for the second prince of Eastern Qi. The things they had on them were obviously not trash. There was no need to say much about the red sleeve blade. There were 9 refinement grades for weapons. The first 3 refinement grades were ordinary weapons, while the middle 3 refinement grades were called precious weapons and had their own names. The red sleeve saber was a 5th revolution saber, which was considered a mid-tier precious weapon. Chu Xiu opened the other box, And there were actually two martial arts manuals. Dusk Drizzle Red Sleeve Blade and Great Sacrificial Grappling Hand? Chu Xiao flipped through the manual, and then looked at the red sleeve blade beside him. This technique was actually a set with a blade in his hand. This kind of combination was very mysterious. Moreover, the rank of this Dusk Drizzle Red Sleeve Blade was not low. In Chu Xiao's eyes, it was at least between the 4th or 5th refinement stage. Chu Xiao also looked through the other Great Sacrificial Grappling Hand in detail. The more he looked, the more mysterious Chu Xiao felt. Grappling hand was originally a martial art of the lowest level. It was a type of martial art practiced by ordinary martial artists, and it was somewhat insignificant. However, this great sacrificial grappling hand could be said to be mysterious. The profound part was that as long as his hand touched anything on the body, even if it was an earring or the corner of a piece of clothing, it would immediately be taken away and unable to escape. Breaking limbs and breaking joints was even easier. The lowest rank of this technique was at least a 4th refinement stage. Abandoning meant abandoning, but the great sacrificial grappling hand was just the opposite. Not only would it not be abandoned, but once it touched the body, it would be impossible to get rid of it. From the beginning, Chu Xiao only used the blade. His attainments in other martial arts were almost zero. Now that he had the great sacrificial grappling hand, it could also make up for Chu Xiao's shortcomings. Chu Xiao turned his gaze to the other box. When he opened it, it turned out to be a palm-sized metal box, but it was already opened. Chu Xiao opened the box, and it was also empty. This made Chu Xiao suddenly frown. What did this mean? Could it be that one of the two cultivation methods actually came from this secret box? However, this was also a bit wrong. Since the martial arts had already been opened, what was the point of keeping such an empty box? Chu Xiao played with it for a while and felt that something was wrong. He picked up the red sleeve blade and was about to put it into the secret box. The strange thing was that the secret box that was only the size of a palm actually swallowed the red sleeve blade. After putting it into the secret box, the red sleeve blade was actually the size of a thumb. It was very strange. Taking out the red sleeve knife, Chu Xiao suddenly said, "So that's how it is." It turned out to be a space box. The so-called space box was actually a secret box, but inside the box, there was a secret array formation called Sumeru Mustard Seed Array. It took the meaning of Sumeru Seed Array from a mustard seed. It could be used to store a very large object in a very small space. It was specifically used to store some large objects. This Sumeru Mustard Seed Array was not lost. Many great Sex Array Dao masters knew about it. However, the materials used to make the array foundation were very rare. Therefore, this space box was also very difficult to refine. It could be regarded as a rare treasure. Chapter 46. Chu Xiao's battle at the Chu clan could be said to be extremely dangerous. As a blood condensation cultivator, he was the weakest of the group. If it weren't for the fact that the internal aura cultivators and the Xiantian cultivators had fought to the death, the final victor would definitely not have been him, Chu Xiao. However, although this battle was dangerous, the rewards added up were enough. It could even be considered a pleasant surprise. Forget about those external objects, the most important thing was the glass golden thread goo, which allowed Chu Xiao's originally average talent to have a qualitative improvement. Of course, the glazed gold thread goo was not omnipotent. As a symbiotic body, the glazed gold thread goo would only return the same amount of strength to the host based on how much qi and blood the host could provide. If the glazed golden thread goo's host was a person who did not want to improve, then the effect would not be great. Chu Xiao placed the two cultivation methods and the treasures he plundered from the Chu family into the secret space box and decided to go into seclusion for a period of time. One was to recuperate from his injuries and make a breakthrough to the Xiantian realm, and the other was to avoid the limelight. Chu Xiao was sure that the entire Tongzhou prefecture had exploded. The Chu family had been exterminated, and the Shen family's patriarch had also died in the Chu family's hands. In such a large Tongzhou prefecture, all the influential forces had been wiped out in a single night. It would be strange if the matter did not blow up. Following the commotion, Shinmo's brother, Shen Bai, who had already joined the Azure Watersword sect, would definitely return. It didn't matter if this matter was traced back to him. Chu Xiao wasn't prepared to continue staying in Wei County. The Azure Watersword sect was the #1 sect in the Wei County, and its influence in the Wei County was absolutely astonishing. Even in the entire pugilistic world, the Azure Watersword sect was considered a top-notch sect. There were countless sects, aristocratic families, and other martial arts forces in Jianghu, but only a small number of them could be ranked. The largest information-gathering organization in the world of martial arts was called Wind Sweeping Tower, which meant that a storm was coming. All the rumors and information in the world of martial arts, big or small, could not be hidden from Wind Sweeping Tower. Right now, Wind Sweeping Tower had composed a song for the top sects in the pugilistic world, describing all the powerful martial artists in the pugilistic world. The East and West Heavens, the North and South Buddhist sects. Taoism's 3 pure ones. 4 spirits fusion divine art. The 5 swords divided heaven and earth. The 6 gangs gathered together. The 7 sects performance. The 8 sects shook the universe. 9 families passed down for thousands of years. Jianghu passed down through the ages. In this song formula, the 7 sects and 8 factions had the most members. Even though they didn't stand at the peak, but they had the greatest influence in the martial world. The Azure Water Sword sect was one of the 7 sects and was known as the local tyrant of the Wei County. With Chu Xiu's current strength, he wasn't foolish enough to go against the Azure Water Sword sect. Since he was all alone now, if he didn't stay in Wei County, he could just change to another place. Not long after, there would be a huge opportunity appearing in the northern Yan region, and Chu Xiu was prepared to join in on the fun. As for now, Chu Xiu was preparing to go into seclusion to accumulate strength. Without strength, even if a fortuitous opportunity was right in front of him, Chu Xiu would not dare to take it. While Chu Xiu was in seclusion, the entire Tongzhou prefecture was indeed in an uproar. In fact, some people had already heard the movements of the Chu family that night. However, the Chu family's mansion occupied an entire street. Even if others heard some movements, they didn't dare to rashly come over to investigate. After all, everyone knew that the second young master of the Chu family killed the Shen family's housekeeper, Shen Rong. What if the movements tonight were related to the Shen family? Therefore, they didn't meddle in other people's business. Until the next morning, when the Shen family was suspicious that Shen Mo didn't return for an entire night, they went to the Chu family to inquire about the situation. In the end, no one answered the door, and there was a faint smell of blood drifting out from the courtyard. The Shen family secretly cursed and quickly opened the door. The first thing they saw was a scene of corpses all over the ground. The Chu family of the Tongzhou prefecture was annihilated in a single night. Among the dead was the Shen family's patriarch, Shen Mo. In a place like the Tongzhou prefecture, this was already a huge matter. After the Shen family recovered from the shock, they quickly sent someone to the Azure Water Sword sect to inform Shen Bai. For such a huge matter, they could only let Shen Bai personally handle it. 7 days later, the Shen family's clansmen were waiting at the city gate. After a while, there was the sound of horse hooves coming from a distance. 5 riders were rushing over. One of them was dressed in white and had a long sword with a blue scabbard on his back. His appearance was almost exactly the same as Shen Mo, but compared to Shen Mo, Shen Bai's face had an intense indifference that made people feel fear. One of the Shen family's elders walked to Shen Bai's side while trembling with fear. "Young master, you are finally back." Shen Bai dismounted from the horse and his expression was still indifferent, as if he still didn't know that Shen Mo was already dead. He looked at that Shen family's elder until the other party was trembling. Shen Bai then spoke coldly. "My younger brother is dead, why are you all still alive?" Hearing this, that Shen family's elder actually plop and kneeled on the ground, trembling as he spoke. "Young master, you really don't care about our matters, ah?" The patriarch going to the Chu clan was his own decision. How would we dare to obstruct the patriarch? Back when Shen Mo inherited the patriarch, he ruthlessly beheaded several Shen family's elders. Logically speaking, these Shen family's elders should be afraid of Shen Mo, but in fact, they were most afraid of Shen Bai. Because Shen Bai once told Shen Mo that there was no longer a need for the Shen family to exist. Since they didn't want to be disciplined, then they should all be killed. Anyway, he could bring Shen Mo to join the Azure Water Sword sect. Shen Mo at least still had the Shen family in his heart, but in the eyes of this Shen family's young master, the Shen family was truly a dispensable existence. If they were obedient, then they would be kept. If they weren't, then they would all be killed. Looking at this Shen family's elder who was already in tears and snot, Shen Bai spoke indifferently. "Bring me to see the corpses." Hearing this statement, that elder acted as if he was granted amnesty and immediately brought Shen Bai and the others to the morgue to see the corpses. 7 days had passed, and the corpses naturally couldn't be left in the Shen family, or else they would have long started to rot. Therefore, the Shen family's members dealt with all the corpses and placed them in the morgue. After arriving at the morgue, Shen Bai removed the white cloth and looked at Shen Mo's decapitated body. Shen Bai's expression was still as cold as ever, but at this moment, everyone could clearly feel that the coldness on Shen Bai's body had intensified. No one present even dared to breathe loudly. After a long while, Shen Bai cupped his hands towards a middle-aged man behind him who was over 50 years old and dressed like an ordinary martial artist. "Constable Chen, sorry to trouble you." That Constable Chen nodded and said, "Young Master Shen is too polite, it's only right." As he spoke, that Constable Chen cleaned his hands and began to inspect the corpses one by one. He also inquired about the Shen family situation in detail, such as the strength of the Chu clan's members and whether they had offended anyone. Among the 5 people that Shen Bai brought, 3 of them were Shen family clansmen. They had gone to the Azure Watersword sect to report to Shen Bai, but they didn't know this Constable Chen. A Shen family elder pulled over a clansman who came to report and asked in a low voice, "Who is this Constable Chen?" The clansman who came to report said in a low voice, "This Constable Chen's background isn't small. He is a veteran constable of the Guanzhong torture room." At his peak, he was an inner aura expert of the 5th level of the Qi control realm. However, because his old injuries had relapsed, he could no longer stay in the Guanzhong torture room, so he returned to Wei Prefecture to prepare to retire. When young master heard the news of Patriarch's death, he specially invited this Constable Chen to help. The Shen family elder nodded his head in understanding. So it was a constable from the Guanzhong torture room. No wonder young master was so polite. Even in a small place like Wei Prefecture, the Shen family had heard of the famous Guanzhong torture room. Guanzhong was located in the center of the 3 kingdoms and belonged to the ungoverned area. The order was chaotic. After a temporary truce between the 3 kingdoms, the martial arts world of Guanzhong worked together to establish the Guanzhong torture room to maintain order in Guanzhong. It didn't belong to any sect, nor did it belong to any kingdom. It maintained absolute justice. The Guanzhong torture room didn't care about ordinary people. They were only responsible for maintaining order in Guanzhong, dealing with vendettas in the Jianghu, and chasing down bandits and villains. Therefore, they were also known as constables of the Jianghu. They had rich experience in dealing with such matters. After a long while, Constable Chen stood up and pointed to the corpses of the 3 Dragon Riders' Imperial Army soldiers. The Chu family was massacred by these 3 people. 2 of them used spears and 1 used a saber. Looking at the calluses on their hands and the scars on their bodies, I dare to say that they were martial artists from the military. However, they didn't have a waist token on them, so I couldn't tell which kingdom they were from. According to the scars and the scene when the servants found the corpses, there were 5 people fighting. Constable Chen pointed to Chu Zongguang's corpse and the martial artist with whip scars on his face. The Chu family's patriarch was ruthless enough. He used the 5 poison sex blood transformation pill to launch a sneak attack, causing blood poison to enter his body and blinding his eyes before killing him. The last one should have been killed by your younger brother after he used a weapon with a strong sword intent to activate the sword light. Constable Chen looked at the last Dragon Rider Imperial Army soldier and Chu Zongguang's corpse with a strange expression. As for the last person, when he was fighting with the Chu family's patriarch, he was ambushed by your younger brother. The 2 of them were killed together. The wounds were all in the same place. They were also killed by sword intent. Chapter 47. Constable Chen had been a constable in the Guanzhong torture room for half his life. He had seen all kinds of strange scenes, but this was truly rare. The enemies were obviously the 3 martial artists from the military, but in the end, Shen Mo actually killed Chu Zongguang as well. There was definitely something he wasn't aware of. Shen Bai furrowed his brows and said coldly, "If that's the case, then my brother died together with these 3 people?" Just now, the Shen clan servants had already reported to Shen Bai that in front of Shen Mo's corpse was the corpse of one of the 3 martial artists. The short knife in his hand had directly beheaded Shen Mo. From the looks of it, Shen Mo didn't manage to kill the other party in one strike and gave the other party some time to catch their breath. Constable Chen shook his head and said in a deep voice, "No, your little brother didn't die together with others. Just now I said that on the surface there were 5 people fighting. In fact, there should be 6 people." Constable Chen revealed a trace of a sneer and said, "To be honest, this person's arrangement wasn't considered brilliant, but it was enough to fool ordinary people. For example, when the people from your residence found the corpse, none of them felt anything was wrong. But if they want to fool me, they are still far from it. Constable Chen pointed to the corpse of the last dragon rider Imperial Guard and said in a deep voice, "On the surface, he used the 1,000-leaf plume to shatter your little brother's weapon and beheaded him with the last knife. But this person's weapon was a spear." Shinbai frowned and said, "A person who uses a spear can also use a knife. It is not strange to cultivate two types of weapons at the same time." Constable Chen smiled and said, "It is not strange. A long weapon can be used to sweep and a short weapon can be used for close combat. It is very normal. But what is not normal is a Xiantian realm martial artist holding a weapon that doesn't suit him. No matter how poor a martial artist is, he wouldn't be so poor to the point of fooling around with his own weapon. Young Master Shen can take a closer look. This spear-wielding martial artist's palm joints are thick, but the short knife's handle is relatively small. It is extremely inconvenient to hold the knife." At this moment, Constable Chen pointed at Shenbai's hand and said, "The flesh on your brother's finger is ruptured. If I'm not wrong, he should be using the Azure Water Sword Sect's vein-severing sword finger. Because your younger brother had exhausted all of his true qi, the pulse-severing finger sword could only condense all of the qi and blood in his body. As a result, as long as the pulse-severing finger sword hit the opponent, it would cause the flesh and blood to explode. If the attack missed, it would only cause the qi and blood to dissipate." However, the opponent's corpse did not have any traces of being hit by the pulse-severing finger sword. From the looks of it, there should be 6 people fighting in the entire Chu clan. It was the 6th person who killed your younger brother after your younger brother killed the other 2, and in the end, he even created the illusion that both sides had perished together. Who is that person? Shenbai's eyes flashed with a gloomy look. "Chu Xiao," Constable Chen said resolutely. "Chu Xiao? Who is that?" Shenbai asked suspiciously. Constable Chen said, "According to the information provided by the servants in your residence, this Chu Xiao should be the 2nd young master of the Chu clan. He has the cultivation of the blood condensation realm. From the corpses on the scene, this Chu Xiao was like the rest of the Chu clan, slaughtered by the 3 martial artists from the military." Constable Chen's face revealed a trace of a smile that was not a smile. He said, "I didn't suspect him before, but when I was inspecting the corpses, I felt that something was wrong from the corpse of Chu Xiao." Constable Chen removed the white cloth on Chu Xiao's corpse, revealing the corpse that was beyond recognition. I don't know what kind of enmity the 3 martial artists from the military had with the Chu clan, but their attacks were extremely ruthless. However, with the inner aura realm of the 5th level of the Qi controlling realm against these blood condensation and body tempering realm martial artists, it was basically a one-sided massacre. Among all the corpses in the Chu clan, only this corpse was the most special. First, his heart was pierced by the tip of a spear with incomparable precision, then his head was smashed. This was very strange. Could it be that when an inner aura realm martial artist fought against a martial artist who was not even in the Xiantian realm, he couldn't be sure that he could kill his opponent in one strike and needed to add another? Of course, it could also be that the other party deeply hated the Chu clan, so his attacks were ruthless. However, the other party only attacked this corpse twice. Why did the martial artist from the military only have such a deep hatred for Chu Xiao? After that, I carefully examined this corpse. Although the corpse has been dead for such a long time, and the qi and blood have congealed, it is impossible to distinguish whether the other party was in the body tempering realm or the blood condensation realm. However, from the calluses on the hands of this corpse, I can be sure that when the other party was alive, the other party mainly practiced with weapons such as rods and spears, while Chu Xiao used a saber. Finally, Constable Chen spoke in a deep voice. "Young Master Shen, with all these clues added up, I dare say that there is an 80% chance that the person who killed your son is this Chu Xiao." Shenbai's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. "Many thanks to Constable Chen. It doesn't matter if this Chu Xiao is the murderer or not. After returning to the Azure Water Sword Sect, I will do my best to capture this Chu Xiao in Wei County." Constable Chen nodded. "Young Master Shen is too polite, this is what I should do." In fact, there were still many mysteries in this matter. For example, why did the 3 martial artists from the military find the Chu clan? Why did Shen Mo kill Chu Zongguang, etc.? But now, these things were no longer important. He was no longer the constable of the Guanzhong torture room, but a person of the pugilistic world who had returned to his hometown to live in seclusion. If it wasn't for Shen Bai's personal invitation, he wouldn't have dared to offend the Azure Water Sword sect. In fact, in his heart, Constable Chen was rather curious about Chu Xiao. It had been a long time since he saw such a ruthless and severe youth. 3 Qi inner aura experts. 2 Xiantian martial artists with formidable trump cards. In this chaotic battle, the one who survived was the weakest, Chu Xiao. This was truly inconceivable. And in the end, Chu Xiao even set up the scene at this critical juncture where he could be discovered at any time, creating the illusion of mutual destruction. This was even more difficult. It could be said that if Shen Bai didn't invite him out, then the Shen clan's bunch of outsiders would never be able to discover these small details. It was a pity that no matter how ruthless and severe Chu Xiao was, it was useless. Shen Bai used the Azure Water Sword sect's name to issue an arrest warrant. As long as Chu Xiao was still in Wei County, it was almost impossible for him to escape. After Shen Bai returned to the Azure Water Sword sect, he indeed used the Azure Water Sword sect's name to issue an arrest warrant for Chu Xiao. On the warrant, there was a drawing of Chu Xiao's appearance and physique. Even though the various sects in Wei County were curious as to why the Azure Water Sword sect would issue an arrest warrant for a small blood condensation realm cultivator, but with the Azure Water Sword sect status in Wei County, they would give face to the Azure Water Sword sect and let their subordinates take note of any traces of Chu Xiao in their territories. But they didn't find any. While the outside world was in an uproar, Chu Xiao was still hiding in the desolate mountains of Shangmang Mountain in seclusion. For 3 consecutive months, he only ate some wild fruits and hunted wild beasts to alleviate his hunger. But Chu Xiao's cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds. With the glazed gold thread goo, his injuries were completely healed. And with the help of the glazed gold thread goo, Chu Xiao stepped into the Xiantian realm in one go. Qi, blood, tendons and bones were integrated into one, without any impurities. This was the Xiantian realm. Among the 3 realms of body refinement, the Xiantian realm had already cultivated the physical body to the extreme. The cultivation of the martial Dao had always been one step after another. The 5th level of Qi controlling mainly cultivated one's Qi. But where was the Qi? Within the martial artists' Dantian and meridians. So in order to step into the 5th level of Qi controlling, one had to first cultivate the physical body well. Qi was water, and the physical body was like a vessel. How much water could be stored was completely dependent on the size of the vessel. Chu Xiao stepped into the Xiantian realm from the body-tempering realm. Although it took him less than a year, his foundation was incomparably solid. Part of it was because of his hard work, but also the benefits of the Xiantian technique and the glazed gold thread goo. After breaking through to the Xiantian realm, Chu Xiao was not in a hurry to come out. Chu Xiao also familiarized himself with the drizzle dusk red sleeve blade and the great abandoned grappling hand. Actually, the best way to cultivate any martial technique was to adapt to it in actual combat. Right now, Chu Xiao had only cultivated it to the entry level. After almost cultivating the 2 martial techniques to the entry level, Chu Xiao was ready to leave Shangmang Mountain and head for northern Yan. Chu Xiao remembered clearly that not long after, an ancient relic appeared in the northern Yan's Linzhong Commandery's Luyang Mountain. It attracted many martial artists to fight over it, and there were many good things in it. Moreover, during that fight, there were no strong martial artists whose strength surpassed the 5th level of Qi controlling. With Chu Xiao's current strength, he was qualified to enter and participate in it. Of course, now Chu Xiao had no choice but to go to northern Yan. He had killed Shen Mo and created the illusion that he was dead. There was no place for him in Wei County, at least not for the time being. When leaving Shangmang Mountain, Chu Xiao did not look for Han Bao and the others. Although with Chu Xiao's current strength, he was not afraid of Han Bao's evil intentions. However, the longer he stayed in Wei County, the more danger he would face. Chu Xiao directly entered Shangmang Mountain and entered northern Yan. He did not even pass by Qingyuan town, which was at the border. If Chu Xiao's guess was correct, Gao Bei should be in Qingyuan town. However, Chu Xiao did not look for him because there was no need to. Gao Bei was a dependable person, but his personality was not suitable for the dangerous Jiang Hu. Chu Xiao asked him to bring a caravan to Qingyuan town. Now that the Chu family had been destroyed, the Chu family's business in Qingyuan town belonged to him. It was not bad to be a wealthy merchant who did not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of his life. The Linzhong Commandery of Yan Country was next to Wei County. After passing by Qingyuan town, Chu Xiao went straight to Shanyang Prefecture of Linzhong Commandery. Shanyang Prefecture was also a large prefecture in Linzhong Commandery. The relic in Luyang Mountains still needed some time to open, so Chu Xiu planned to rest here for a while. Moreover, the annual secret box auction would begin in a few days in Linzhong County, and the location would be in Shanyang Prefecture. It was not one of those cheap secret chests of unknown origin, but one that had a long history. Although it was expensive, the items inside were undoubtedly more reliable. Chu Xiu just happened to know that there were a few good items in this auction. The silver notes and purple gold he brought from the Chu family amounted to nearly 1,000,000 taels of silver. Gold and silver were nothing to a true martial artist. Only strength mattered. Therefore, Chu Xiu was prepared to spend all of these gold and silver treasures in exchange for treasures that could increase his strength. As he stepped into Shanyang Prefecture, the pedestrians on the street all looked at Chu Xiu. The current Chu Xiu was a little too eye-catching. After several months of closed-door training in Shangmang Mountain, Chu Xiu's originally luxurious brocade robe had become dirty. His hair was also a mess. However, his aura did not seem like that of a beggar, so he was still quite eye-catching. Chu Xiu frowned. He first found an inn to freshen up, then went to a tailor's shop to buy a new set of black warrior clothes. He also equipped his red sleeve blade with an inconspicuous sharkskin scabbard. After all, the design of the red sleeve blade was a little too eye-catching. When he was in Tongzhou Prefecture, Chu Xiu still deliberately concealed his strength, so he looked more like a young master of an aristocratic family. But now, Chu Xiu was dressed in black and carried a blade. The biting cold edge of his body was like the edge of a blade. He was completely a young sabersman who was wandering in Jianghu. Chapter 48. In a tavern in Shanyang Prefecture, Chu Xiu placed the red sleeve knife on the table and ordered a pot of yellow wine and a few northern yen specialties to eat. During his seclusion in Shangmang Mountain, Chu Xiu had been eating wild fruits and tasteless barbecued meat for several months. He had eaten so much that he was about to throw up. Wei County was close to Eastern Qi and was considered a vassal of Eastern Qi in the past. Hence, the cuisine here was similar to that of Eastern Qi, but it was more exquisite. The cuisine of the Northern Yen Kingdom was just like the environment here. It was rough and generous, very bold. Chu Xiu only asked the waiter to serve a few Northern Yen specialties. In a short while, the waiter served a large plate of braised beef, a roast chicken, a braised pork knuckle, and a few other side dishes. Upon closer inspection, even the side dishes that went with wine were mostly vegetarian. Chu Xiu was starving. Regardless of whether it was meat or vegetables, it was better than the wild fruits and barbecued meat in Shangmang Mountain. A martial artist's appetite was much larger than an ordinary person's. Cultivating the martial way was a process of refining essence into qi. In less than a quarter of an hour, Chu Xiu had swept away all the dishes on his table. Chu Xiu threw a piece of silver on the table. Just as he walked out, he heard a commotion coming from the street. Many people were gathered there, watching something. Chu Xiu stopped and looked forward. The crowd was watching a man and a woman. The woman was beautiful and had a graceful figure. Although she was young and did not look to be in her 20s, there was already a hint of seductiveness in her. The man was dressed like a young master of an aristocratic family. In his hand was a jade box. With a fawning expression, he said, "Sinew, these are black pearls that I specially asked someone to buy from the Southern Sea. There are a total of 18 of them. They are all round and almost the same size." The woman frowned and said, "Young Master Zhang, please conduct yourself with dignity. I've already said that it's impossible for young Master Zhang and I to be together. You don't need to waste your time here. Young Master Zhang, please give this gift to her." Chu Xiu's face revealed a look of interest. Courting in public, this Northern Yen culture sure is open. The customs of Wei County were similar to those of Eastern Qi. Matters between a man and a woman had to be settled by the order of the parents and the words of the matchmaker. At least, Chu Xiu had never seen this kind of courtship in Tongzhou Prefecture. A warrior in his 40s beside him, who looked like a low-level Jianghu man, grinned and said, "Little brother, you're not a local of Shanyang Prefecture, are you? Our Northern Yen land is open-minded, but these two aren't courting each other. It's just one-sided love, and they've even made a fool out of themselves." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "I've only come to Shanyang Prefecture today. What, does this lady's family background seem to be very high, and you don't like the man?" The warrior curled his lips in disdain and said, "Hi? It's just a small family. This woman is Lin Xinyu, the eldest daughter of the Lin family of Shanyang Prefecture. Some busybodies call her the #1 beauty of Shanyang Prefecture. The Lin family she comes from is not a big family, and the family head is only at the blood condensation realm. The man is the second son of the Zhang family of Shanyang Prefecture, Zhang Baichen. He's just a spoiled brat, and he's not a good person. But the Zhang family isn't without capable people. The eldest son of the Zhang family is a calm and steady person. In his early years, he traveled the Jianghu and unexpectedly entered the Ba Mountain Sword Sect, one of the 7 sects and 8 sects. He spends most of his time cultivating in Shu, Western Chu, and rarely returns home. After Zhang Baichen took a fancy to Lin Xinyu, he sent someone to propose marriage. The head of the Lin family wanted to curry favor with the Zhang family, but Lin Xinyu stubbornly refused. But who would have thought that Zhang Baichen would never forget Lin Xinyu? In order to curry favor with Lin Xinyu, he's used many methods. He's become a common sight in Shanyang Prefecture. Hearing this gossip, Chu Xiao shook his head. He was just an idiot, and there was no meaning to it. The marriage proposal had been rejected, and the other side clearly didn't like him. With the Zhang family's status in Shanyang Prefecture, he could either use force or give up. But he was still pestering them. He was basically a joke. Laughing at him was also laughing at the Zhang family. There were too many people who couldn't see through them. After watching for a while, Chu Xiao felt that there was no meaning to it, so he wanted to leave. At this time, Lin Xinyu saw that there were already so many people surrounding them. They all looked like they were watching a good show. She was so angry that her face was red. She wanted to kill that idiot Zhang Baichen on the spot. Lin Xinyu thought highly of herself. With her looks, if she wanted to marry, she would marry a young talent from a large family, and not a wastrel like Zhang Baichen who had neither strength nor ability. The eldest son of the Zhang family, Zhang Baitao, had joined the Ba Mountain Sword Sect of the 7 sects and 8 schools. It was said that he was an inner sect disciple. Lin Xinyu could consider this identity, but Zhang Baichen was not in her consideration at all. But who would have thought that Zhang Baichen would keep pestering her? The Zhang family was stronger than the Lin family, so Lin Xinyu didn't dare to say anything too much. Recently, she had tried to go out as little as possible. Today, Lin Xinyu just wanted to pick some rouge and powder that she liked. She didn't expect to be pestered by Zhang Baichen again. Seeing that more and more people were gathering, Zhang Baichen was thick-skinned and could ignore the looks of others, but Lin Xinyu couldn't. She said angrily, "Zhang Baichen, don't pester me anymore. I already have someone I like." Zhang Baichen's face darkened. He snorted coldly and said, "Who is it?" Lin Xinyu had just blurted out in anger and embarrassment. Now that Zhang Baichen asked her, she was immediately speechless. But when she turned her head, she subconsciously saw the figure of Chu Xiao who was about to leave. She hurriedly pointed at Chu Xiao and said, "It's him." It was actually very simple for Lin Xinyu to choose Chu Xiao in a hurry. Among the people present, only Chu Xiao was the most eye-catching. At this time, although Chu Xiao didn't show his Khanate realm cultivation, his aura was as sharp as a blade. It was very eye-catching. Moreover, in terms of appearance, although Chu Xiao's temperament was a little dark, his appearance was very delicate and handsome. Compared to those dirty people at the bottom of the Jianghu, Chu Xiao, who was wearing a neat and slender black warrior suit and a long saber at his waist, could be called a hero of the Jianghu. If she didn't choose him, would she choose the guy beside Chu Xiao, who was in his 40s, who had yellow teeth and a gossipy mouth? Even if Zhang Baichen was an idiot, he would know that Lin Xinyu was playing with him. Everyone turned to look at Chu Xiao. The middle-aged man next to him even revealed a wretched smile and said, "Brother, you're not being particular. You're obviously having an affair with the #1 beauty of our Shanyang Prefecture, yet you're pretending to be a stranger and not admitting it?" Lin Xinyu walked over leisurely with a fragrant wind. Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows and said, "Do we know each other?" Lin Xinyu put on a pitiful expression and said in a low voice, "Young master, I will remember this favor of yours in my heart." After saying that, Lin Xinyu directly grabbed Chu Xiao's arm and said to Zhang Baichen, "Child Zhang, I already have someone I like. Please don't bother me in the future. You don't want your reputation, but I want it, and so does the Lin family." At this time, Zhang Baichen's expression was very gloomy. The whole Shanyang prefecture knew that he was pursuing Lin Xinyu. In the Shanyang prefecture, the disciples of the aristocratic families who had a good relationship with the Zhang family also gave him face. No one dared to compete with him. It was not worth becoming enemies with the Zhang family for a woman. But who would have thought that an outsider would take the lead? Just when Zhang Baichen was about to curse, he saw Chu Xiu suddenly pull his arm out of Lin Xinyu's hand. With a crisp sound, Chu Xiu directly slapped Lin Xinyu to the side. Everyone present was stunned. No one thought that Chu Xiu would suddenly do this. Even Zhang Baichen forcibly swallowed his curses. Lin Xinyu also covered her face and fell to the ground, looking at Chu Xiu with a look of disbelief. Swinging his hand, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Normally, I don't hit women. But for a vicious woman like you, I won't hold back. You are impatient with that idiot's harassment, so you used me as a shield. The Zhang family is the local tyrant of Shanyang prefecture. After you use me as a shield, the Zhang family will take revenge on me. At that time you can stay out of it, but who will care if I provoke a powerful enemy for no reason?" As soon as he said this, everyone present revealed a strange expression. This young man was really frighteningly calm. If it was someone else with a beauty by his side, begging him with soft words, how could he think so much? He would have stepped forward bravely and willingly become Lin Xinyu's shield. Of course, the result was obvious. Zhang Baichen would definitely bear a grudge, and then the Zhang family would take revenge. Unless one's background was shocking, how could an outsider fight against the local tyrant of Shanyang prefecture, the Zhang family? Thinking of this, the way the crowd looked at Lin Xinyu changed slightly. This woman looked harmless, but her heart was very hard. Regardless of whether her previous actions were intentional or not, she had almost harmed an innocent person and offended the local tyrant of Shanyang prefecture, the Zhang family. It was said that women were femme fatale, and now it seemed that it was true. Chapter 49. Lin Xinyu covered her face and looked at Chu Xiu with hatred in her eyes. In fact, she didn't think too much just now. She just wanted to find someone to use as a shield. As for whether the Zhang family would take revenge on Chu Xiu, she didn't care. After all, even she had to carefully reject Zhang Baichen. She didn't dare to shed all pretense of cordiality with Zhang Baichen. But she didn't expect that Chu Xiu would slap her in front of everyone and expose her thoughts. This made Lin Xinyu so ashamed that she wanted to kill Chu Xiu on the spot. At this moment, Zhang Baichen hurried over from behind and helped Lin Xinyu up. He scolded Chu Xiu. "You actually dared to raise a hand against Xinyu. You're simply courting death." Everyone was speechless. Even at this time, Zhang Baichen was still protecting Lin Xinyu. Should they say that he was infatuated or that he was simply stubborn? Zhang Baichen wasn't joking. He directly waved his hand and a few servants of the Zhang family walked out from the crowd and rushed towards Chu Xiu. Although Zhang Baichen was a bit stupid when it came to Lin Xinyu, he wasn't stupid in other areas. The guy in front of him didn't seem to be easy to provoke. He was only at the body tempering realm. Of course, he would just stand at the back and watch the show. Among those servants, there was a middle-aged man in the blood condensation realm. He was a guest of the Zhang family and was sent to protect Zhang Baichen. The head of the Zhang family knew that his son wasn't reliable, so he could only send a reliable person to protect his son at all times. The blood condensation realm cultivator walked over and said, "Brat, I'm sorry. My young master wants you to stay, so I can't do anything about it. Obediently surrender and you'll suffer less." Chu Xiu sneered disdainfully and didn't even move. When the blood condensation realm cultivator saw Chu Xiu's attitude, a hint of anger appeared in his eyes. His young master was indeed a bit overbearing in this matter. But if this brat was tactful, he wanted to put in a good word for him later. But since this brat had such an attitude, he couldn't blame him for being ruthless. Now that Chu Xiu's Xiantian's strength was restrained, the cultivator subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu's strength was around the body tempering or blood condensation realm at his age, so he didn't care too much. He directly stepped forward and punched Chu Xiu's Dantian. He was actually planning to cripple him first. A cold light appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. When the punch was about to hit him, Chu Xiu's hand twisted and the cultivator's arm was directly caught by Chu Xiu. His muscles, bones, and veins were instantly captured. He wanted to struggle but found that he was like prey in a spider's web. He had already been completely captured. No matter how he struggled, He couldn't escape from Chu Xiu's grasp. The great sacrificial grappling hand. Chu Xiu's hand flipped and pulled. A powerful force tore through the cultivator's arm. The cultivator immediately let out a mournful howl. His arm was twisted like a fried dough twist and was thrown to the side. Xiantian martial artist. The surrounding people looked at Chu Xiu with incomparable shock. To cripple a blood condensation realm cultivator in one move, this young man was definitely a Xiantian martial artist. Xiantian martial artists were not rare in Jianghu. But to be able to reach the Xiantian realm at such a young age, he was clearly not a simple person. There were very few independent cultivators, and most of them had a powerful background. Zhang Baichen was also scared silly when he saw this scene. He pulled Lin's sinew and turned to run, not even caring about the Zhang clan's guest who was still wailing in pain on the ground. Everyone present shook their heads when they saw this scene. This second young master of the Zhang clan really wasn't much. He didn't have any sense of responsibility. In a time of crisis, he didn't care about his own people and only cared about a woman. Fortunately, the Zhang clan still had a big brother to support them. In the future, it would definitely not be his turn to control the clan. The middle-aged cultivator from the Zhang clan who had been gossiping with Chu Xiu came to Chu Xiu's side and said in a low voice, "Young master, it's true that you have the strength of a Xiantian martial artist, but the Zhang clan is the local tyrant of Shanyang province. You're just one person. There's no benefit in having a falling out with them. You should take this opportunity to leave." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Many thanks for the reminder. But I still haven't finished my business here. How can I leave?" At the mention of the Zhang clan, Chu Xiu suddenly had an idea. He walked over and patted the Zhang clan's guest who was still wailing on the ground. He said indifferently, "All right, don't shout. It's just a broken arm. He won't die." The Zhang clan's guest revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. He said in a low voice, "Young master, I have eyes but fail to recognize Mount Tai. I hope that young master will let me go." He was just a guest of the Zhang clan, not a death warrior of the Zhang clan. It was not worthwhile to offend a young Xiantian martial artist for the sake of the Zhang clan. Therefore, he decisively surrendered. "Do I look like a bloodthirsty person? Don't worry, I won't kill you. Take me to the Zhang clan," Chu Xiu said indifferently. The cultivator was stunned. Wouldn't it be courting death to go to the Zhang clan at this time? It was estimated that Zhang Baichen had already returned to the Zhang clan to ask for reinforcements. "Didn't you hear what I said?" Chu Xiu's face sank and said coldly. The cultivator struggled to get up and said, "I will take you there now." When the others saw that Chu Xiu actually followed the guest of the Zhang clan to the Zhang clan, a strange expression appeared on their faces. Even if he was courting death, he shouldn't do this, right? The Zhang clan's clan leader, Zhang Songling, was a Xiantian martial artist. He had been in the Xiantian realm for more than 10 years. Moreover, the Zhang clan had more than 100 collateral relatives and some servants who knew martial arts. Even if this young man was strong, he was still too inexperienced to challenge the Zhang clan, the local tyrant of the Shanyang prefecture. At this time, Zhang Baichen immediately rushed back to the Zhang clan after sending Lin Xinyu back to the Lin clan. Seeing him like this, the Zhang clan's clan leader, Zhang Songling, who was feeding the birds in the courtyard, frowned and said, "Why are you so flustered? You're already a grown man. I don't expect you to be as ambitious as your elder brother. When can you be more mature?" As the Zhang clan's clan leader, Zhang Songling lived a comfortable life. The Zhang clan was not the strongest among the factions in the Shanyang prefecture, but it was not the weakest either. The key was that he had a good son. Although Zhang Baichen was not up to expectations, his eldest son, Zhang Baitao, had entered the Ba Mountain Sword Sect, one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. This gave the Zhang clan too much face. Every time the Shanyang prefecture's families gathered, everyone would praise his eldest son. Therefore, in the Zhang clan, Zhang Songling could not be bothered to discipline Zhang Baichen. Anyway, this son of his was destined not to take over the position of clan leader in the future. It was fine if he was a little naughty, as long as he did not cause too much trouble. Zhang Baichen said with a wronged expression, "Father, I want to be mature, but I was almost killed just now." Zhang Songling was shocked. "Who dared to attack you in the Shanyang prefecture? Didn't I send Han Wei to protect you? Where is he?" "That person is a Xiantian realm martial artist. Han Wei was crippled in one move. Zhang Songling immediately frowned. Xiantian realm martial artist? An outsider? Zhang Baichen knew all the Xiantian realm martial artists in the Shanyang prefecture, so he did not dare to provoke them. Moreover, in the Shanyang prefecture, the others would also give face to the Zhang clan and would not make things difficult for Zhang Baichen. Yes, it is an outsider. Zhang Songling snorted. Don't worry, an outsider, even if he has the strength of the Xiantian realm, he can't behave atrociously in the Shanyang prefecture. Zhang Songling did not even ask who was in the right and who was in the wrong. With the Zhang clan's status in the Shanyang prefecture, even if Zhang Baichen was in the wrong, could he still punish his own son and apologize to the other party? At this moment, a voice suddenly came from outside the door. Zhang clan leader is so powerful. It seems that in the Shanyang prefecture, the Zhang clan can cover the sky with one hand? Chu Xiao followed Han Wei into the courtyard. When Zhang Baichen saw Chu Xiao, he immediately took 2 steps back in panic. He pointed at Chu Xiao and said, "Father, it is him. He wanted to kill me just now. He even crippled Han Wei." Zhang Songling looked at Chu Xiao coldly. He was also a little surprised at Chu Xiao's young age, but he still said coldly, "How dare you? You dare to touch my Zhang clan's people, and you still dare to come to my Zhang clan. Do you really think that there is no one left in the Zhang clan?" Chu Xiao glanced at Han Wei and said, "It's just a broken arm, it's not like it can't be reattached. As for the matter between me and your son, Zhang clan leader can directly ask him later. I came here today to discuss a business deal with Zhang clan leader. A big business deal worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. If Zhang clan leader thinks that regaining your son's face is more important than a business deal worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver, then forget what I said." Hearing Chu Xiao's words, Zhang Songling was suddenly shocked. Although the Zhang clan's scale in the Shanyang prefecture was not small, it was only slightly stronger than the previous Chu clan. For the Zhang clan, hundreds of thousands of taels of silver was indeed a big business deal. Zhang Songling looked deeply at Chu Xiao and said, "Let's talk inside." Chapter 50. Chu Xiao and Zhang Songling took their seats in the living room. Only Zhang Baichen was still in a daze. They were clearly enemies. How could they sit here and talk about business in the blink of an eye? Zhang Baichen was about to say something, but Zhang Songling glared at him and stopped him. Zhang Songling looked at Chu Xiao and said in a deep voice, "You just touched a member of my Zhang family, and now you want to talk about business with my Zhang family? What kind of business are you talking about?" Chu Xiao said indifferently, "In a few days, it will be the annual auction of the secret box in Linzhong Commandery. I happen to know some insider information. Among the secret boxes, there are a few that I need. But I am not from Linzhong Commandery. If I participate in the auction rashly and compete with others, not only will I attract attention, I may not get what I want in the end. But the Zhang family is different. As the local tyrant of Shanyang Prefecture, your family should participate in the auction every year and buy a batch of secret boxes. So I want to ask the Zhang family to help me get what I want. After the auction, I will reward you handsomely." As he said this, Chu Xiao took out a large piece of purple gold and placed it on the table. There were 10 taels of purple gold, which was more than 100,000 taels of silver. This is the deposit. Asking the Zhang family to help with the auction was something that Chu Xiao suddenly thought of when he was fighting with the Zhang family. What he said to Zhang Songling just now was the truth. The auction of Linzhong Commandery was held every year, and the participants were all familiar faces. As it was an auction, everyone was competing with their wealth and personal connections. Chu Xiao was an outsider. He had a few 100,000 taels of silver, which was enough for him to showcase his skills at the auction. However, it was very likely that he would attract the attention of others, resulting in an accident. If it was purely a competition of wealth, Chu Xiao was naturally not afraid. He was prepared to spend all the silver he had, but he was afraid that something unexpected would happen during the auction. According to Chu Xiao's understanding, this kind of auction organized by dozens of forces in the pugilistic world was not so clean. If outsiders entered the auction, it was very likely that they would lose both their money and their lives. Zhang Songling looked at the purple gold that Chu Xiao had taken out with an unreadable expression on his face. Since this person dared to participate in the Linzhong Commandery auction, It meant that he had a certain background. After all, this was an auction that would be attended by dozens of factions in the entire Linzhong commandery. The secret boxes that could be taken out for auction all had their origins, and the starting price would be in the thousands or even tens of thousands of silver taels. The most important thing was the purple gold that Chu Xiao had taken out. Purple gold was something that ordinary martial artists in the Jianghu would never be able to come into contact with. Only a few great powers would keep it in reserve. At such a young age, and with such wealth, he could even take out purple gold. Right now, Chu Xiao's identity was truly unfathomable in Zhang Songling's eyes. Chu Xiao said lightly, "Master Zhang, have you made up your mind? After this is done, I will pay you another 20 taels of purple gold, and all you need to do is to move your mouth during the auction." Zhang Songling thought for a while before saying, "Sure, I agree to this deal. However, may I ask for young master's name?" Chu Xiao pushed the purple gold in front of Zhang Songling and said with a smile, "No problem. I'm Chu Xiao, and I'm staying in the Pleasant Arrival Inn in the Mountain Sun Prefecture. After the auction begins, I'll come find you, Patriarch Zhang." After speaking, Chu Xiao turned and left. Chu Xiao did not wish to recall some of the things that happened in his previous life. He had already died once, and those memories were not very pleasant. However, now that he had taken out a fake name to fool others, Chu Xiao subconsciously said the name of his previous life. Zhang Songling thought about it. He had never heard of Lin Yi in the Linzhong commandery before, so the other party should be a foreign cultivator. After Chu Xiao left, Zhang Baichen hurriedly asked, "Father, why are you working with him? Are you just going to let this matter go?" Zhang Songling frowned and said, "I haven't asked you yet. How did you incur enmity with this Lin Yi?" Zhang Baichen wanted to say something, but Zhang Songling said, "All right, you don't have to say it. I won't hear any truth from your mouth." As he spoke, Zhang Songling called Han Wei, who had finished treating his injuries, and asked him to tell him the details of the situation. After Han Wei finished, Zhang Songling immediately scolded Zhang Baichen angrily. "What did I tell you back then? I told you to stay away from that woman, Lin Xinyu, but you turned a deaf ear to it. Can't you tell what that woman is thinking? She's just playing with you like a fool. She's a source of trouble. Today, you offended a Xiantian realm Lin Yi because of her. In the future, if you offend a big shot that our Zhang family can't afford to offend because of her, it will be a calamity that will destroy our family." Zhang Baichen did not dare to retort after being scolded. He could only say in a low voice, "Then are we just going to let this matter go?" Zhang Songling snorted coldly and said, "If we don't let this matter go, what else can we do?" He came with a huge business deal worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Do you think your face is more important than hundreds of thousands of taels of silver? However, I can't see through that Lin Ye's background. I will send someone to investigate. During this time, don't provoke that Lin Yi again. Just stay at home and reflect on your mistakes. After reprimanding Zhang Baichen, Zhang Songling turned to Han Wei and said, "Han Wei, I've made things difficult for you this time. In a while, go to the pharmacy to get some medicine and pills for cultivation. I will approve a few more months for you to use." Han Wei smiled bitterly and cupped his hands, saying, "Many thanks, Patriarch." That Lin Yi was a Xiantian realm martial artist. Now that he had a partnership with the Zhang family, his injuries could only be considered to have been in vain. Zhang Songling suddenly asked, "You fought with that Lin Yi. Can you tell which sect he is from?" Han Wei smiled bitterly and said, "How can it be considered a fight? I was simply subdued by him in one move. That Lin Yi used a very terrifying grappling technique. As long as I'm caught, I can forget about escaping. Furthermore, I can sense that he hasn't used his full strength yet. There's a saber at his waist, which should be his main weapon. He's already so terrifying without using a weapon. When he draws his saber, I reckon I won't even be able to withstand a single strike." Zhang Songling rubbed his chin and said, "Grappling technique? Very few people in the pugilistic world cultivate this kind of unpresentable martial art. The most famous ones are the Great Dragon Capturing Hand of the Great Radiance Temple and the Heaven-Splitting Divine Claw of the Southwestern Heavenly Eagle Sect. What exactly is this Lin Ye's background?" After thinking about it, Zhang Songling said in a deep voice, "It just so happens that you're injured now. You don't have to stay by second brother's side for this period of time. Help me run an errand and find the wind-sweeping pavilions branch in Linzhong County. Spend a lot of money and get them to help me investigate this Lin Ye's background. Han Wei asked in surprise, Patriarch, aren't you already prepared to make a deal with him? Why do you still want to investigate him? A strange expression appeared on Zhang Songling's face as he said, making a deal with him doesn't mean that we're friends. I want to see this Lin Ye's background. This person's way of doing things is very strange. I won't feel at ease if I don't get to the bottom of this. Although the wind-sweeping pavilion's information is expensive, if there's nothing wrong with this Lin Yi, we can still earn quite a lot of money from this deal. No matter how we look at it, we won't make a loss. Han Wei nodded. The Patriarch was still the one with deep foresight. If it were him, he wouldn't have thought so much. Right now, Chu Xiu didn't care about what the Zhang clan's people would do. To the current Chu Xiu, strength represented confidence. Even if he was alone, he had the confidence to not be afraid of the Zhang clan. That was why he dared to leave the purple gold with the Zhang clan as a deposit. If the Zhang clan wanted to swallow his deposit, Chu Xiu would let the Zhang clan understand that they had to be trustworthy. 5 days later, the Mountain Sun Prefecture's secret box auction officially began. Almost all the aristocratic families in the Linzhong County sent people to participate in the auction. On the day of the secret box auction, the Zhang clan didn't play any tricks. Instead, they directly sent people to invite Chu Xiu. When he arrived at the Zhang clan, Zhang Baichen and Zhang Songling were already waiting for Chu Xiu. Although many days had passed, Zhang Baichen's eyes were still filled with hatred when he saw Chu Xiu. It was because of this guy that he had embarrassed himself in public and even ruined the reputation of his beloved woman. A few days ago, he had even gone to the Lin clan. In the end, he didn't even enter the Lin clan's door. However, he had just been warned by Zhang Songling not to cause trouble. Therefore, when he saw Chu Xiu coming over, he only snorted coldly and turned his head to the side. Chu Xiu didn't care. He couldn't be bothered to stoop to the level of an idiot. Zhang Songling said, Mr. Lin, the secret box auction will start at noon. Let's go. Chu Xiu nodded and followed behind Zhang Songling. He also hid his aura. He looked like a young junior of the Zhang clan, not revealing anything. Chapter 51. The auction of the secret box was arranged in the largest restaurant in Shanyang Prefecture, 8 Treasures Restaurant, which was also the property of the Tao family, the largest family in Shanyang Prefecture. The Zhang family's influence could be ranked in the upper class in Shanyang Prefecture, but in the whole Linzhong Commandery, it was at most in the lower middle class. There were many experts in the 5th level of Qi-controlling realm who came to participate in the auction. Chu Xiu followed the people of the Zhang family to take their seats. A short, fat and stout man with a perpetual smile on his face walked onto the stage. He cupped his hands towards the surroundings and said, I am Tao family's chief steward Tao Wang. This year's auction of the secret box will be hosted by my Tao family. The auction of the secret box in Linzhong Commandery has been going on for more than 10 years, so I won't say too much. The rules are the same as in previous years. The origin of the secret box is absolutely authentic. At the same time, the identity of the seller will be hidden. After the auction, the buyer will pay on the same day and the seller can also receive the money on the same day. Also, everyone is from the martial arts world of Linzhong Commandery. In order not to hurt the harmony between both parties, each party can bid for the secret box 10 times at most. After 10 times, if there is still competition, then the auction will be temporarily closed. Both parties can discuss the ownership of the secret box. If there is anything, we can talk it out. Alright, let's cut to the chase. My name is Tao Wang, and I wish everyone good luck today. The secret boxes you open all contain good stuff. Hearing Tao Wang briefly explain the rules of the auction, Chu Xiu secretly thought that it was a close call. Fortunately, he thought one step ahead and found the Zhang family as a shield. Otherwise, he might really be in some trouble this time. The auction of the secret box in Linzhong Commandery was obviously prepared for them. Although outsiders could participate, there was obviously a lot of inconvenience. The bidding was limited to 10 times at most. They were afraid that the two forces would become enemies because of one auction. After 10 times, everyone secretly discussed a compromise and discussed the ownership of the secret box. Everyone was happy if they each took a step back. However, if Chu Xiu were to participate in the auction by himself, And if someone were to compete with him, then after 10 bids, the other party would see that Chu Xiao was a stranger, and that he was alone. Who knew what kind of decision they would make? It was possible that they would threaten and rob him. At this moment, Tao Wang on the stage waved his hand, and someone immediately brought out a white jade box. Tao Wang pointed at the box and said, "This box was produced in Nanman. It was excavated from a mid-tier sect during the great calamity of the ancient times. Although the name of the sect was unknown, it was not a small one. Looking at the material of the box, it should be used to store pills and unrefined spirit medicines. Of course, it could also be empty, or the elixirs inside have already decayed due to material problems. Everyone, please be careful. The starting price is 15,000, and each increment must not be less than 1,000. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of people started bidding. After a few bids, the price had already doubled. The price of the box that was confirmed to contain elixirs was generally not too high because there were too many uncertainties. Some pills could last forever after they were concocted, maintaining their medicinal potency. However, some pills had an age limit. It was possible that after you opened the secret box, although it wasn't empty, it would be a pile of medicinal mud without any medicinal potency. Zhang Songling asked in a low voice, "Is young Master Lin interested in this thing?" Chu Xiao shook his head. Regarding the situation of this auction, he only knew that there were a few good things mentioned in the plot. As for whether there were other treasures, he really did not know. Therefore, before he saw his target, Chu Xiao would not make a move. Zhang Songling saw that Chu Xiao was not interested, so he bid twice, wanting to buy the secret box. For a small family like the Zhang family, the probability of opening a cultivation method from a secret box was somewhat low. Moreover, the price of a cultivation method secret box was at least 10 times that of an elixir, so the Zhang family could not afford to gamble. Therefore, every year, the Zhang family would spend more than 100,000 silver to bid for some elixir-type secret boxes. Although most of them were empty, there would always be one or two good things when they were lucky, and if they were lucky, they would be able to break even with just one. In the auction, several more secret boxes were sold, but Chu Xiao did not participate in any of them. Until now, Tao Wang asked someone to take out a palm-sized blood-red secret box with strange patterns. He said, "The origin of this secret box is somewhat interesting. A few decades ago, in Eastern Qi, an ancient demonic sect's inheritance was born. One of the 7 sects and 8 schools, the Phaseless Demon Sect, wanted it, and one of the 5 great sword sects, the Sword King City, also sent experts to snatch it. The battle between the two sides was somewhat intense, and they even directly destroyed the ancient ruins. Some of the surrounding small sects and rogue cultivators picked up a bargain, and obtained many secret boxes. Therefore, in these years, many secret boxes produced by that demonic sect have been sold, and some of them have opened up some good things. The cultivation method of that demonic sect should be related to blood, and it belongs to the extreme demonic path, so everyone should be careful. Moreover, the secret boxes that have been sold over the years have also been real and fake. Some people have directly used some trash secret boxes of unknown origin to pretend to be real, and they have deceived many people. At present, we have determined that this secret box is 70% real and 30% fake. Whether it is a cultivation method, an elixir, or some other treasure, we cannot tell. Everyone, please be careful. The base price is 200,000, and each bid is 10,000. After listening to this introduction, there were really only a few people present who bid, especially those big powers who did not participate in the bidding. It was not because they thought that the secret box was fake, but because they had scruples about their reputation and were not too interested in demonic things. Those who had come to participate in this secret box auction were the righteous sects of Linzhong Commandery. It was easy to be criticized if they won a secret box produced by a demonic sect, and if it was a cultivation method, even if it was powerful, they could only secretly cultivate it. And if it was an elixir to a very large extent, it was also of little value. This was because the elixir produced by demonic sects was somewhat unsuitable for the righteous martial artists, and some would even cause a backlash. At this time, Chu Xiao narrowed his eyes and whispered to Zhang Songling, "Zhang family head, help me win this secret box." Zhang Songling nodded and directly raised his paddle. 250,000. When the people present saw that the Zhang family was interested, many people immediately gave up. It was not that they were afraid of the Zhang family, but it was somewhat not worth bidding for such a high-risk item of little value. But at this time, There was a bald strong man who had been bidding with Zhang Songling. Both sides had already competed for 400,000, directly reaching the peak of the 10 bidding. That bald strong man glared at Zhang Songling and coldly snorted. "Zhang family head, my Black Tiger gang is so far away from your Shanyang prefecture, and I have not offended you, right? Is it interesting to compete with me for this thing?" The other righteous martial artists did not want to bid for this secret box because it was a demonic item, but this strong man was from a gang, and did not have this worry. Zhang Songling cupped his hands and smiled bitterly. "Chow family head, I did not mean that, I really want this secret box. Everyone knows that my family's second son is really a bit of a good-for-nothing, and he can't be compared to his big brother. My Zhang family's inherited cultivation method focuses on accumulation, and it is really too slow for him to cultivate, so I want to try my luck and see if I can open a demonic cultivation method." After all, demonic cultivation methods focus on speed, and I do not need his foundation to be very stable. I only hope that he can advance to the next realm quickly. Zhang Songling's excuse was considered reasonable, and that Chow family head of the Black Tiger gang thought for a moment and said, "Since you want to help your son, I, old Chow, will not make things difficult for you. 100,000 silver. I will take the initiative to withdraw." This kind of thing was very common in auctions, and when one side retreated, the other side naturally had to pay some price. In all fairness, 100,000 silver was a bit too much, but in any case, the secret box was Chu Xiu's, and the silver was also his, so Zhang Songling naturally did not feel the heartache, and directly agreed to it. The secret box was successfully won by Zhang Songling. Chu Xiu frowned. The cost of this secret box was a bit beyond his imagination, and he actually spent 500,000 silver to win it, which directly used up all the silver he got from the Chu family. However, it was also fortunate that this time he cooperated with the Zhang family, or else if he came alone, that Chow family head of the Black Tiger gang might not give him face, and at that time, Chu Xiu might have to make a cameo appearance as a bandit, and try to rob and kill along the way. Chu Xiu did not participate in the following auction. Anyway, in the original plot, the most valuable things in this auction were already in his hands, and although there were a few other good things, Chu Xiu did not care. When the auction ended, Zhang Songling took the silver that Chu Xiu gave him, and after handing over the money, he said to Chu Xiu, "Young Master Lin, please wait patiently. After the seller receives the money and confirms the confirmation, the secret box will be sent to the Zhang family tonight." Chu Xiu said, "That's good. I will come to the Zhang family tonight to get the secret box, and I will also hand over the rest of the purple gold to you, Patriarch Zhang." After leaving the auction, Zhang Songling directly returned to the Zhang family, and at this time, Han Wei, who had been away from Shanyang Prefecture for a few days, also happened to rush back. He moved closer to Zhang Songling and said in a low voice, "Patriarch, I got the news from Wind Sweeping Tower. There is really something wrong with Lin Ye's identity." Chapter 52. Zhang Songling's face immediately revealed a strange expression when he heard Han Wei said that there was a problem with Lin Ye's identity. To be honest, he investigated Lin Ye's identity just in case. He was afraid that Lin Yi was backed by those evil cultivators and didn't have any evil intentions. But he didn't expect to actually find a problem. "Any news from Wind Sweeping Tower?" Han Wei said, "Wind Sweeping Tower's information is that there is no such person. There is no young Xiantian martial artist called Lin Yi in the Linzhong region. In the entire northern Yan region, there are young Xiantian martial artists called Lin Yi, but their appearances don't match. Therefore, Wind Sweeping Tower suspects that Lin Yi is using a fake name." But later on, Wind Sweeping Tower suddenly found out that something happened in the Wei region's Tongzhou prefecture. It was because a small clan in the Tongzhou prefecture, the Chu clan, was annihilated, but the younger brother of Azure Wave Sword Sect's eldest disciple, Falling Rain Sword, Shanbai, was killed. Because of this incident, Azure Wave Sword Sect issued a wanted order for Chu Xiu in the entire Wei region. They even had a simple portrait. When I took a look, it was actually 80% similar to Lin Yi. But according to the wanted order, Chu Xiu is only at the blood condensation realm, but Lin Yi is at the Xiantian realm. Wind Sweeping Tower can't be 100% sure that both of them are the same person. Therefore, Wind Sweeping Tower only took 80% of the price. Zhang Songling sneered twice and said, 80% is already enough. I didn't expect that after this investigation, we actually found something good. Han Wei, who was at the side, asked in astonishment, "Clan head, Are you trying to sell the information that Lin Yi is Chu Xiao to the Azure Water Sword sect? But clan head, the Azure Water Sword sect is a sect from the Wei Commandery, and you should know about the relationship between the Wei Commandery and our Northern Yen. Both parties aren't on good terms. Even if they know of the news, they wouldn't dare to make a big fuss and capture anyone. Zhang Songling sneered. Who said I want to sell the information about Chu Xiao to Azure Wave Sword sect? In Wind Sweeping Tower's information, the real point isn't that Chu Xiao is wanted by Azure Wave Sword sect, but that he doesn't have any faction behind him. Instead, he is a stray dog that fled in panic. Since the Chu family had been destroyed, wouldn't Chu Xiao have all the Chu family's assets and valuables with him? Squeezing out these things is much more worthwhile than selling the information to the Azure Water Sword sect. Han Wei said hesitantly, Patriarch, are you going to make a move on Chu Xiao? Even though according to the intel, he is only at the initial Xiantian realm, but for the Azure Water Sword sect to put a bounty on his head, he definitely isn't a simple character. Zhang Songling said coolly, no matter how extraordinary he is, he's just one person. My Zhang family has so many people. Could it be that we can't do anything to him? However, there was nothing wrong with being careful. If Chu Xiao is willing to obediently hand over the Chu clan's treasures, then both parties will naturally be happy. But if Chu Xiao doesn't know what's good for him and insists on making a move, then get them to inform the Tao clan and the other major factions of the Mountain Sun Prefecture to come after hearing the commotion. There's no need to tell them the details. Just tell them that there are benefits. Get them to help me surround this Chu Xiao. At most, we will just split the profits with them. Han Wei nodded. This was also the rule of the Mountain Sun Prefecture. There was competition between the factions, but there was also cooperation. If one person couldn't eat it alone, then they would get others to eat it together. After nightfall, the auction house had already sent the secret box that Chu Xiao had bid for to the Zhang residence. Zhang Baichen said from the side, Father, didn't Lin Yi know, Chu Xiao say that he has insider information? Let's open it and see what exactly is inside this secret box. Zhang Songling nodded. He was also rather curious, but just as he was about to open it to see what exactly was inside, a servant suddenly reported that Chu Xiao had come to visit. A gloomy smile appeared on Zhang Songling's face as he placed the secret box on the table. After a while, Chu Xiao was brought in by a servant of the Zhang clan. However, the moment he entered, Chu Xiao felt that the atmosphere was a little off. Previously, Zhang Songling's attitude towards Chu Xiao was considered polite. Both of them were innate stage cultivators. At the very least, Zhang Songling didn't treat Chu Xiao as a junior and put on an arrogant attitude. However, when he saw Chu Xiao enter, Zhang Songling remained seated in his chair. He didn't say a word or even move. Meanwhile, Zhang Baichen, who was beside him, looked at Chu Xiao with a playful look on his face. He actually felt like he had gotten his revenge. A strange look appeared in Chu Xiao's eyes as he said indifferently, Let's exchange the goods. Zhang clan head, we can be considered to have a pleasant cooperation this time. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiao saw the scarlet box on the table and immediately reached out to take it. But right at this moment, Zhang Songling was one step ahead and kept the secret box in his arms. This caused Chu Xiao's expression to instantly turn cold. Zhang clan head, what is the meaning of this? Zhang Songling replied indifferently. Nothing much. I just want to have a chat with young Master Lin. Chat about what? A trace of coldness flashed in Chu Xiao's eyes. Zhang Songling sat up straight and sneered. Of course it is to chat about your identity. Lin Yi Chu Xiao. Hee, young Master Chu, if I didn't investigate, I really wouldn't know that you actually have such a background. How does it feel to be wanted by one of the 7 sects and 8 factions, the Azure Water Sword sect? Hearing Zhang Songling's words, Chu Xiao frowned, but his hand was already on the red sleeve blade. After arriving at the Linzhong region, he didn't hear any news from the Azure Water Sword sect. He subconsciously thought that his arrangements weren't discovered, but from the looks of it, he must have left a flaw in his plan in a hurry and was seen through. Chu Xiao replied indifferently, Zhang clan head is preparing to report me to the Azure Water Sword sect? But the Azure Water Sword sect only put me on the wanted list in Wei region. Can they send people to Northern Yen to capture me? The one I killed was the Azure Water Sword sect's eldest disciple, Shen Bai's younger brother, not Shen Bai himself. Zhang Songling sneered. The Azure Water Sword sect cannot capture you with great fanfare. But if I were to capture you and send you to the Azure Water Sword sect, as one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, how much benefits do you think the Azure Water Sword sect will give me?" As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Songling clapped his hands. Immediately, dozens of Zhang clan's elite martial artists surrounded the entrance. Among them, there were 5 blood condensation realm martial artists, and the rest were the Zhang clan's elites. Chu Xiu's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. "Zhang clan head is preparing to use force? Previously, I was very sincere in wanting to cooperate with Zhang clan head." Zhang Songling shook his head. "Not at all. I also don't want to make a move. I just want young Master Chu to understand your current situation. The Azure Water Sword sect is a large sect in Wei region. If there is no need, my Zhang clan doesn't want to deal with the Azure Water Sword sect for some petty benefits. So young Master Chu, if you are willing to take out some treasures in exchange for your life, I can let you go. I will even take the initiative to cover up the news in the Mountain Sun region." Speaking up to here, Zhang Songling's eyes revealed a trace of greed. "The Chu clan was exterminated, and the only one left alive is you. Most of the Chu clan's wealth should be in your hands, right? Hand them over. Wealth is just a worldly possession. Life is your own." Actually, from the start, Zhang Songling never thought of selling the news of Chu Xiu to the Azure Water Sword sect. He didn't even think of capturing Chu Xiu and handing him over to the Azure Water Sword sect. The reason was simple. The Azure Water Sword sect only issued a warrant for Chu Xiu. They didn't mention if anyone could offer up information on Chu Xiu or capture Chu Xiu. The Azure Water Sword sect was Wei region's #1 sect. To the entire Wei region's martial arts community, everyone had to give face to the Azure Water Sword sect. Therefore, when the Azure Water Sword sect issued a warrant, there was no need for rewards. Some sects would even be secretly delighted to be able to form a relationship with the Azure Water Sword sect. The Zhang clan was a small faction in the northern Yan region. Even if they took the initiative to hand over information on Chu Xiu or Chu Xiu himself to the Azure Water Sword sect, they probably wouldn't get anything good. At most, they would just get Shen Bai to express his gratitude. And if the Zhang clan didn't know what was good for them and demanded an exorbitant price from the Azure Water Sword sect, then they would die a miserable death. Therefore, after knowing the true identity of this Chu Xiu, Zhang Songling had already made up his mind. He was going to squeeze out all the Chu clan's wealth and treasures from Chu Xiu. The Chu clan had been exterminated, and Chu Xiu was the only one left alive. All of the Chu clan's wealth, cultivation resources, and other treasures were definitely on Chu Xiu's body. Adding all of these together, it was definitely a huge sum of money for the Zhang clan. But Zhang Songling didn't know that at that time, Chu Xiu was already seriously injured and had one of his arms crippled. Furthermore, because of Shen Mo, he died in the Chu clan. How would he dare to stay in the Chu clan for long? Chu Xiu didn't have the time to search for the Chu clan's wealth and resources. Only the silvers on him were found in Chu Zongguang's house. Chu Xiu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Zhang clan head has such a big appetite. Aren't you afraid of overexerting yourself? Your ability to rob others is even stronger than bandits. Zhang Songling took out an ancient bronze sword with pine patterns. This was a weapon produced in the land of Ba and Shu. It was a 4th revolution sword forged by a sword master from Ba and Shu. It was given to him by his eldest son, Zhang Bai Tao, as a gift for his 50th birthday. Zhang Songling pointed the sword at Chu Xiu and spoke indifferently. An innocent man will get into trouble because of his wealth. If you are a Xiantian martial artist with a strong background, then my Zhang clan wouldn't dare to offend you. But if you are an ordinary rogue Xiantian martial artist with nothing good on you, then my Zhang clan wouldn't be bothered to offend you. There is no benefit in fighting to the death. But you, Chu Xiu, are currently wealthy and are just a stray dog wanted by the Azure Water Sword sect. If we don't make a move on you, then who should we make a move on you? Chapter 53. As the head of the Zhang family, Zhang Songling hadn't fought with others for a long time. He hoped that Chu Xiu would be sensible, so that he wouldn't have to ask other forces of the Shanyang prefecture to share the loot with them. Chu Xiu held the red sleeve blade in his hand and said lightly, "Would you believe me if I said that I didn't take any of your things when I left the Chu family?" Zhang Songling sneered. "Do you think I would believe you?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I guess that you wouldn't believe it either. However, Patriarch Zhang, what you said just now is very true. Wealth is merely a worldly possession, and only one's life is one's own. Unfortunately, you yourself haven't seen through this point. As soon as he finished speaking, a murderous intent swept over in an instant. Chu Xiu's eyes suddenly became red. Chu Xiu's aura was very sharp. He used a saber, and his own aura was like a saber. But just now, Chu Xiu was just a blade hidden in the scabbard, and his killing intent was restrained. Now Chu Xiu was a blade out of the scabbard. Once the blade was out of the scabbard, it would drink blood and kill. The scarlet blade light flashed. No one knew when the red sleeve blade was out of the scabbard, and its speed was extremely fast. The azure dragon in the sleeve blade could not only let Chu Xiu break out the strongest blade at the critical moment, but it could also make Chu Xiu's speed become faster and fiercer. Zhang Songling didn't expect that Chu Xiu would make the first move at this time. He asked people to block the door because he was afraid that Chu Xiu would escape. But he didn't expect that Chu Xiu didn't want to escape at all. Instead, he took the initiative to kill him. How could Chu Xiu leave just like that when he hadn't gotten what he wanted? In a panic, Zhang Songling's figure retreated quickly. The ancient pine-patterned sword was simple and heavy. After a few points, the Southern Dipper star mark appeared in front of him. The Southern Dipper was in charge of life, and the Northern Dipper was in charge of death. Zhang Songling's sword technique had an extraordinary origin. It was also a sword technique that he had obtained from a secret box in his early years, but it was only a remnant of a powerful sword technique. However, although it was only an incomplete move, it contained the vitality of the Southern Dipper sword force. The sword force was continuous and watertight. However, when Chu Xiu's saber light came into view, Zhang Songling's expression suddenly changed. He had never seen such a beautiful blade before. The crimson blade and the transparent blade were like transparent glass inlaid with crimson bone ridges. The blade was slightly short, and the curved part of the blade was like the slender waist of a peerless beauty. It had 1,000 styles and 10,000 kinds of intense beauty. Twilight drizzle red sleeve blade. No matter how beautiful a saber was, it was still a saber. When the saber was unsheathed, it drank blood and killed people. The crimson color in Chu Xiu's hands had evolved into a strong killing intent. The saber momentum was bleak and strange. The crimson blade tore through everything, and the Southern Dipper sword momentum was shattered. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes, but the crimson killing intent in his eyes was about to overflow. With the fusion of the memories of two lives, Chu Xiu had a tyrannical factor in his bones. Chu Xiu had already discovered this when he was in Tongzhou Prefecture. However, Chu Xiu had never chosen to suppress this. Instead, he allowed it to grow. This caused Chu Xiu's killing intent to surge to an abnormally strong level during the battle. Of course, Chu Xiu had a limit in his heart. He would not be overwhelmed by the killing intent. On the contrary, this strong killing intent would also appropriately enhance Chu Xiu's own strength. At this moment, facing Zhang Songling, Chu Xiu only had one feeling. He could not withstand a single blow. He did not know whether it was because he was too strong now, or because Zhang Songling was used to living like a prince and was too weak. In any case, Chu Xiu did not feel the slightest pressure from Zhang Songling. He was much weaker than Shen Mo, who had died in Chu Xiu's hands. At this moment, Zhang Songling had no time to be shocked. He hurriedly shouted, "Attack together!" There was indeed a certain gap between the Xiantian realm and the blood condensation realm, but this gap was not to the extent of being like heaven and earth. At least, the attack of the blood condensation realm could still cause a certain amount of damage to the Xiantian realm. Hearing Zhang Songling's words, the Zhang family's warriors outside finally reacted. They hurriedly rushed into the hall and attacked Chu Xiu together with their weapons in hand. Their movements were quite coordinated. Chu Xiu's figure moved and directly rushed into the crowd. The red sleeve blade in his hand swallowed and spat out a beautiful crimson light. As the blade fell like a pool of autumn water, a head flew into the sky. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. A blood condensation realm warrior was directly beheaded by Chu Xiu's blade. The more blood the blade was dyed, the more intense the crimson color on the blade became. Chu Xiu's figure wandered among the Zhang family's warriors. In the dusk drizzle, it was as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. But as long as his blade slashed across, it was bound to take a life, causing blood to bloom. In a short while, Chu Xiu had consecutively killed more than 10 people. The entire hall was completely dyed red with blood. Zhang Songling's eyes revealed a ruthless look. He could not let Chu Xiu continue killing like this. Otherwise, the Zhang family's vitality would definitely be greatly damaged. Zhang Songling's Southern Dipper sword was good at defending and not good at attacking. Just like his character, he was more willing to stand his ground under other people's attacks until the other party lost their temper. In Shanyang Prefecture, Zhang Songling had always done this, until he met Chu Xiu, an existence that he could not even block. Since he could not block, then he could only attack. Although Zhang Songling was not good at attacking, it was impossible for him to only practice such a sword technique. While Chu Xiu was massacring the members of the Zhang family, Zhang Songling immediately took the initiative to attack. The pine vein ancient sword in his hand emitted an extremely resplendent sharp light. Countless sword shadows rained down. This was not the sword light of a level 5 Imperial Qi expert, but the shadows created by the sword being too fast. Hainan Chaotic Wind-Splitting Sword Technique. The Chaotic Wind-Splitting Sword Technique was created by a sword sect that had already been destroyed, Hainan Sword Sect, so it was also known as the Hainan Chaotic Wind-Splitting Sword Technique. It was quite widespread in Jianghu, but its grade was not low, it was at the 3rd rank. The sword shadows fell like a heavy downpour. Although it looked very messy and uneven, the essence of the Chaotic Wind-Splitting Sword Technique lay in the word, messy, making people unable to figure out the sword momentum within it. In the depths of the sword shadows, Chu Xiu's blade momentum changed. In the midst of the chaotic sword momentum, he slashed horizontally, aiming at Zhang Songling's chest. The sword shadows stopped, and Zhang Songling's chaotic wind-splitting sword technique could not mess up Chu Xiu. Facing this terrifying blade, he could only put away his sword to defend, displaying the Southern Dipper sword momentum. However, he was sent flying by Chu Xiu's blade. The powerful force even caused his perlicue to bleed, and the hand holding the sword was trembling. However, at this moment, Han Wei, who had been hiding in the crowd and had not made a move, took this opportunity to form a claw with his left hand. Like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain, he launched a sneak attack on Chu Xiu's back with a sharp force. Chu Xiu did not even turn his head. With a movement of his left hand, he displayed the great sacrificial grappling hand. His 5 fingers were like 5 steel nails, directly pressing down on Han Wei's palm and squeezing along his arm. Only the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard, along with Han Wei's miserable howl. His entire arm was crushed by Chu Xiu's great sacrificial grappling hand. I gave you a chance, but unfortunately, you did not cherish it. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's hand gently moved on Han Wei's head, and a terrifying thing happened. Han Wei's head was like a ball, spinning in a big circle before flying out. In an instant, blood gushed out like a fountain. After being held in the great sacrificial grappling hand, one's body no longer belonged to oneself. This scene was incomparably terrifying, and everyone present was stunned. The Zhang family's hangers-on and servants could be considered to be somewhat knowledgeable. Killing someone was nothing strange, but a scene as horrifying as Chu Xiu, who forcibly plucked off a person's head with a single move of his hand, had already scared them silly. The first to lose control was none other than Zhang Baichen. Zhang Baichen was a good-for-nothing playboy. In the Zhang family, he was a little too well protected. The Zhang family was supported by Zhang Songling, the family head. Outside, his elder brother, Zhang Baitao, was also supporting the facade. He himself was also the kind of person with no great ambitions. He had never thought of competing with his elder brother for the position of the family head. Therefore, the relationship between the two brothers could be considered harmonious. Since young, when had he ever seen such a cruel scene? Therefore, at this moment, Zhang Baichen completely broke down and ran out as if he had lost his mind. Seeing this scene, Zhang Songling's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly shouted, "Don't go! Come back!" A sneer appeared at the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth. He took a step forward, and the red sleeve blade in his hand danced. He took off the heads of 2 Zhang family warriors who were blocking in front of him, and directly grabbed Zhang Baichen in his hand. Feeling the cold blade swaying in front of him, Zhang Baichen's body trembled. Zhang Songling looked at Chu Xiu with a trace of regret in his eyes. He did not regret making a move on Chu Xiu, but he regretted that he did not consider it thoroughly. He felt that he had considered the matter of making a move on Chu Xiu. Chu Xiao had no background and was just a stray dog being hunted. It was not a big deal to make a move on him. However, he had missed one point, and that was Chu Xiao's strength. He had never expected that even though they were all at the innate realm, he and the warriors of the Zhang clan would not be able to take down Chu Xiao. Now, Chu Xiao had even captured his own son. Chapter 54. Zhang Songling wasn't Chu Zongguang. He wouldn't disregard his own son's life for a treasure. Looking at Chu Xiao, Zhang Songling put down his sword and spoke in a low voice. Chu Xiao, you win this time. I should have thought of it. To be wanted by the Azure Water Sword sect, you must have done a lot of things. I will give you the secret box, and I will pay for the money to buy the secret box. Let my son go, and I won't tell anyone about what happened today. Chu Xiao shook his head and spoke indifferently. Zhang clan head, you still don't understand. The most important thing to do is to know one's own limits. Previously, you didn't know your limits and tried to kill me. Now, you are still begging me without knowing your limits. What I hate the most is when someone tries to snatch my things. Even though you only tried to snatch something that didn't exist, but you still made a move. There is no medicine for regret in this world. Since you have decided to make a move, there is no turning back. Just like now, I have killed so many of your Zhang clan's members. You might be admitting defeat, but your heart must be very unwilling, right? So today, I will ask all of you to die. With a casual statement, the blade in Chu Xiao's hand casually slid across Zhang Baichen's neck and threw him to the side like a piece of trash. There were some things that you either didn't do, or you had to do it to the extreme. This wasn't a habit of Chu Xiao's in his previous life, but a principle that he comprehended in this life. From top to bottom, this Zhang clan wasn't any good people, and Chu Xiao already knew it. Hence, he had prepared for both scenarios. If the other party was honest, then he wouldn't kill them out of boredom. But if the other party wasn't honest, then Chu Xiao didn't mind earning back the money he spent in the auction. At this moment, when Zhang Songling saw that Chu Xiao had killed his son, his eyes instantly turned scarlet red. He roared and brandished his sword at Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao, I'll kill you. The chaotic cloak of wind swordsmanship was displayed, and the chaotic sword momentum contained an incomparably violent killing intent. However, it was completely broken by Chu Xiao's blade. The crimson-red sleeve blade swept away the pine-pattern ancient sword. The drizzle was crimson-red, and the killing intent fell. Zhang Songling dodged in a panic, but he was still slashed below his ribs, and blood instantly flowed out. You feel angry that you're sending off your son? Unfortunately, there's no medicine for regret in this world. Chu Xiao's figure moved directly, and the blade fell, forcing Zhang Songling to dodge repeatedly. However, at this moment, Chu Xiao only used his left hand to display the great sacrificial grappling hand. A corner of Chu Xiao's clothes was caught in his hand, and in an instant, Zhang Songling's entire left arm was caught by Chu Xiao. With a forceful pull, Zhang Songling's entire arm was forcibly torn off by Chu Xiao. Just when Zhang Songling was about to cry out in pain, a crimson blade light appeared in front of him, and in an instant, his head fell to the ground. Blood flowed down from the red sleeve blade, but not a single drop of blood stained the blade. Sure enough, high-grade goods were different. A fifth revolution precious weapon was much more useful than ordinary weapons. However, Chu Xiao shook his head. To be honest, Zhang Songling's strength was too weak. It was true that Zhang Songling was an innate expert, but Chu Xiao was sure that Zhang Songling had not been in a life-and-death battle for several years. His cultivation did not deteriorate, but his combat strength had deteriorated beyond recognition. On the other hand, Chu Xiao, ever since he transmigrated, almost every battle was a life-and-death battle. If he lost, he would either be killed or crippled. Therefore, when fighting, Chu Xiao's nerves were stretched taut, and he did not dare to relax in the slightest. At this time, the Zhang clan servants had already fled. In fact, when Chu Xiao was killing crazily, the Zhang clan had already fled. This situation was very normal for a small aristocratic family like the Zhang clan, which did not have a strong foundation. Most of their followers and servants were recruited with money, and their loyalty could only be said to be average. If it were a large aristocratic family with hundreds of years of foundation, the direct and side branches would be clearly separated. Even the servants would be loyal descendants of the main family for several generations. Basically, this situation would not occur. Chu Xiu found the secret box on Zhang Songling's corpse. Inside it was the piece of purple gold that he had given to Zhang Songling. However, it was now back in Chu Xiu's hands. No matter what, the Zhang clan was considered a famous force in the Shanyang prefecture. The Zhang clan's foundation was definitely deeper than the Chu clan's. Killing, robbing and arson. Chu Xiu did not mind playing the role of a bandit when needed. However, before he could do anything, he heard a commotion coming from outside. Chu Xiu frowned. There were actually quite a number of people with powerful auras. Dozens of warriors stepped into the Zhang clan's courtyard. They were all the leaders of the other forces in the Shanyang prefecture, and they were called over by the Zhang clan. Chu Xiu did not know that Zhang Songling had actually called the other forces in the Shanyang prefecture to prevent him from escaping. He thought that he had made too much noise and attracted the people here. As soon as those people stepped into the Zhang clan's courtyard, they were shocked to see the scene full of corpses. Just now, the Zhang clan servants told them that Zhang Songling was going to deal with someone, and asked them to help surround him. When the time came, they would help them get a share of the loot. This kind of thing was very common in the Shanyang prefecture, and it could be regarded as the tacit rule of the Shanyang prefecture. They were not afraid that Zhang Songling would deceive them, so when they received the news, they immediately rushed over. However, in such a short time, so many people from the Zhang clan had died. Everyone present looked at each other. They could not see the origin of this person, but the fact that so many people from the Zhang clan had died in his hands was enough to prove that this young man was not simple. No matter what the benefits that Zhang Songling had mentioned were, the fact that he had died here was enough to prove that the benefits were not easy to obtain. However, it was not the right thing to let this person go like this. After looking at each other, among these people, a warrior in his 40s, holding a Zanmadeo, stood out and shouted, "How dare you? How dare you kill people in my Shanyang prefecture? Do you really think that there is no one in the Shanyang prefecture who can stop you?" Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "You are?" The warrior said in a deep voice, "Shanyang prefecture, Tao family, mountain-splitting blade, Tao Zhongwang." Chu Xiu glanced at the corpses of Zhang Songling and the others, and said lightly, "My grudge with the Zhang clan is purely personal, and I have no intention of becoming enemies with the Shanyang prefecture." Tao Zhongwang shook his head and said, "But no matter what, the Zhang clan is also a member of the Shanyang prefecture. Your Excellency has killed people and just left without leaving any explanation. It is not justifiable no matter where you put it." Chu Xiu glanced at the people from the other families who did not move, and Tao Zhongwang who stood out alone. Chu Xiu seemed to understand something. He took a step forward and slashed out with a red sleeve blade in his hand. The crimson blade light was as bright as lightning, and with a poignant killing intent, it suddenly made Tao Zhongwang's hair stand on end. Tao Zhongwang used a blade, and he had met many saber men, but it was the first time that he saw such a magnificent blade, and in that magnificence, there was endless killing intent. Tao Zhongwang raised the Zanmadeo in his hand, and his momentum was unparalleled. On one side was the magnificent red sleeve blade, and on the other side was the powerful and heavy Zanmadeo. Between the two, one focused on sharpness and lightness, and the other focused on strength and pressure. The two blades collided, and suddenly there was a loud clang. Chu Xiu took 3 steps back, and the red sleeve blade was not damaged at all. Tao Zhongwang also took 3 steps back, but there was a rice grain-sized gap on his Zanmadeo. Chu Xiu did not continue to attack, but directly sheathed the blade, and said lightly, "Is this enough explanation?" Tao Zhongwang looked at Chu Xiu, and although he tried to keep calm, his eyes could not hide the horror. The two of them clashed, and although it seemed to be a draw, it must be known that Chu Xiu was using an extremely sharp long saber, while he was using the heavy and powerful Zanmadeo. Chu Xiu used his weakness to attack his strength, but both sides were evenly matched. If it was a life-and-death battle, it could be imagined what it would be like. He really could not figure out how Chu Xiu, at such a young age, accumulated such a strong internal force, and such a strong foundation of strength. Even he was shocked. With a sigh, Tao Zhongwang held his blade and stepped aside, and with his action, the other aristocratic families did the same, and directly stepped aside, allowing Chu Xiu to leave. Just now the others did not move, and only Tao Zhongwang stood out. In fact, there was only one purpose, and that was to test Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu's strength was not as strong as they thought, then fine, they could directly let Chu Xiao stay. But now, Chu Xiao's strength was unfathomable, and even Tao Zongwang, who was the strongest among them, did not have the confidence to take him down. In that case, let the matter be. Although they were confident that they could take down the opponent together, who could guarantee that they could come out unscathed? And there was another reason. They did not know what benefits this person in front of them had, but other benefits were right in front of them. The Zhang family was now all dead. The Zhang family was originally built by Zhang Songling from scratch. The so-called direct descendants were only Zhang Songling and his 2 sons, and the others were servants and distant relatives. The Zhang family was such a big business. How could the people of Shanyang Prefecture watch it fall into the hands of the Zhang family's distant relatives? Of course, it should be divided among them. Chapter 55. After the news of the Zhang family being destroyed spread in Shanyang Prefecture, there was not much of a stir. Compared to a small place like Wei County, the competition in the martial arts world of the Northern Yan Kingdom was far more intense. It was normal for families to be destroyed and to seek revenge. Back then, the Zhang family was able to rise in the Shanyang Prefecture by stepping on the corpses of others. People did not know much about the Zhang family being destroyed. They only knew from some of the surviving servants of the Zhang family that the other party was called Chu Xiao, and that he had gotten in touch with Zhang Baichen and Lin Xinyu. When they thought up to there, everyone couldn't help but shake their heads in their hearts. They thought to themselves that this woman was truly a femme fatale. If it wasn't for this matter, Chu Xiao would definitely not have any contact with the Zhang clan. At this time, after Chu Xiao left Shanyang Prefecture, he prepared to go to the vicinity of Luyang Mountain and wait for the ruins to open. The incident at Shanyang Prefecture was just a small interlude to him, so Chu Xiao did not pay much attention to it. After leaving Shanyang Prefecture, Chu Xiao opened the secret box. Inside was a cultivation method. It was the secret cultivation method of the ancient demonic sect, the Blood River sect, Piercing Sun and Moon. At the auction, the auctioneer of the Tao family said that the secret box was 70% real and 30% fake. In fact, he was talking about the origin of the secret box. 70% of it was left behind by the Blood River sect. As for what was inside, no one could be sure. Cultivation methods and martial skills had always been more expensive than elixirs and the like. This was common sense. If this 70% probability could be confirmed to be a cultivation method, then this secret box wouldn't be auctioned at all. Even if it was auctioned, it wouldn't be calculated by silver, but by gold or purple gold. The Piercing Sun and Moon was a very strange inner cultivation method of the Blood River sect. It originated from the demonic path, but it was not completely demonic. The Piercing Sun and Moon originated from the saying, "Heaven and earth are heartless and treat all things as straw dogs." All life in the world was death. As for the various aspects of death, regardless of whether it was natural or not, it was all in the word, kill. When people kill people, it is called, kill. When the heavens punish people, it is called, evil. The Piercing Sun and Moon could condense one's own killing intent and explode with boundless power. A higher level could even condense the Piercing Sun and Moon with extraordinary power. One's own killing intent and the baleful energy between heaven and earth could be used as the power of connecting the sun and moon. The Righteous Path's martial artists could also condense their own righteous energy. Naturally, it could also be used as connecting the sun and moon. That was why later generations would evaluate this cultivation method as very mystical. It could be used to cultivate the demonic path, but also the righteous path. The grade of Piercing Sun and Moon was Fourth Revolution. In Northern Yan, Chu Xiao knew that there were quite a few cultivation methods that were suitable for him to practice now, and had not fallen into the hands of experts. There were even Fifth Revolution and even Sixth Revolution cultivation methods. He could try to seize them, but with his current strength the probability of success was a little small, not more than 50%. The reason why Chu Xiao chose to auction the Piercing Sun and Moon in Shanyang Prefecture was not only that this cultivation method was easy to get and was on the way, but also that the Piercing Sun and Moon could be the icing on the cake for Chu Xiao. In fact, this cultivation method was not too outstanding in the original plot. It could only be said to be below the middle level. Even its effect was much weaker than that of the Xiantian skill, which could help the cultivators salvage their foundation. But for the current Chu Xiao, this cultivation method was very useful. The Xiantian's skill was indeed very powerful in salvaging the foundation. Otherwise, Chu Xiao could not have reached the innate realm. But in the battle, the characteristic of the Xiantian's skill was that the internal force was strong. There were not many skills to use it, and the explosive power was not enough. After cultivating the lunisolar piercing spirit, Chu Xiao would be able to make use of its characteristics to increase his explosive power. It wouldn't be considered a timely help, but at the very least, it would be the icing on the cake. It would allow Chu Xiao to have fewer shortcomings. After getting this cultivation method, Chu Xiao went to Luyang Mountain while practicing it. At this time, in the direction of Shanyang Prefecture, on a handsome white horse, a handsome warrior in a blue robe, with a quaint bronze sword on his back, rode slowly into the city. This man was Zhang Baitao, the eldest son of the Zhang family. In his early years, he joined the Beishan sword sect in the land of Beishan and Shu in the western Chu kingdom. He spent most of his time practicing in the Beishan sword sect and did not return home once in a few years. After all, the land of Beishan and Shu was a little far from the northern Yan. With his speed, it would take him 2 or 3 months to go back and forth, which delayed his practice too much. Looking at the familiar streets in Shanyang Prefecture, Zhang Baitao could not help but smile. He had not seen his father and brother for several years. This time he came back, he prepared a lot of gifts for them. His father's martial talent was not very good, and it was estimated that he would stop at the primordial realm in his life. So he specially used the merits in the sect to exchange some life-prolonging elixirs for his father. As for his brother, he also knew that his brother was not a material for martial arts, and his character was a little naughty. But everything in Jianghu was still based on strength. So this time, Zhang Baitao specially asked his master to promise him to give his brother the internal force that the Beishan sword sect gave to the outer sect disciples to practice, so that his brother could practice faster. In the past, Zhang Songling built the Zhang family from scratch. Different from the intrigues of other aristocratic families, the atmosphere of the Zhang family was very good. In the eyes of outsiders, Zhang Songling was a greedy old fox, but in Zhang Baitao's heart, he was a good father who worked his heart out for the family. For the sake of his own cultivation, he exchanged the money that he had painstakingly calculated into cultivation resources for him, just so that he could become a talent. His younger brother, Zhang Baichen, was naughty, but when he was young, he left cultivation resources to his older brother. He did not compete or become strong. This made Zhang Baitao very touched, and he always took good care of his younger brother. Zhang Baitao even prepared to tell his father that he did not want the Zhang family, and would leave it to his younger brother. As long as he stayed in the Ba Mountain sword sect, the Zhang family would be fine. But at this time, a young master walked out of the restaurant. Seeing this person, Zhang Baitao got off his horse and greeted, "Brother Tao, I haven't seen you for many years. Are you well?" The young master stilled when he saw Zhang Baitao, as though he was frightened. He stammered in greeting, "So it is Brother Zhang. Aren't you cultivating in the Ba Mountain sword sect? Why have you come back?" Zhang Baitao was puzzled by this person's behavior. He was Tao Yi, the young master of the Tao family of the Mountain Sun Prefecture. They were acquainted since childhood. Why did he look so strange when he saw Zhang Baitao? "I have not returned home for many years. I miss my father and younger brother. Coincidentally, my seclusion in the Ba Mountain sword sect has reached a bottleneck, so I told my master that I would go out for a walk and relax. I am preparing to return home." Tao Yi gave an unnatural smile and said, "In that case, Brother Zhang, hurry home. I will not disturb you." As he spoke, Tao Yi ran away as though his feet were smeared with oil. Seeing Tao Yi's actions, Zhang Baitao felt even more wrong. The two were acquaintances, and Tao Yi was not an idiot. He should have said some polite words, right? He had left the Mountain Sun Prefecture for so many years. Now that he had returned, the other should at least say something to welcome him. Why did he run away so quickly? Thinking of this, Zhang Baitao felt a faint haze in his heart. He immediately mounted his horse and rode towards the Zhang family. But Tao Yi was faster than Zhang Baitao. He had to tell Tao Zhongwang and the other major forces of the Mountain Sun Prefecture as soon as possible. The death of Zhang Songling and his son naturally had nothing to do with them. But the problem was that during this period of time, several major forces were still slowly digesting and distributing the Zhang family's property. Now that the son of the Zhang family had returned and saw their ugly table manners, how could Zhang Baitao not be angry? If Zhang Baitao was an ordinary person, it would be fine. But Zhang Baitao was a Khanate warrior, and he was an inner sect disciple of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect. Although the Ba Mountain Sword Sect was far away in Sichuan, it was still one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. If these small forces bullied the disciples of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect, they would not be able to bear it if they sent an expert to seek justice. At first, they thought that Zhang Baitao had not returned to the northern Yan for so many years, and no one knew when he would come back again. So they were relieved to swallow the Zhang family's property. Anyway, after a long time, who would remember what happened in the past? But who would have thought that Zhang Baitao would return to the northern Yan at this time? At this time, Zhang Baitao rode his horse to the Zhang family. The usually lively Zhang family was now tightly shut. When Zhang Baitao pushed the door open, what appeared in front of him was unexpectedly white silk flower knots hung all over the courtyard. Several loyal collateral relatives of the Zhang family were wearing mourning clothes and had set up a mourning hall in the courtyard. They were adding paper money into the brazier. Seeing this, Zhang Baitao's body suddenly swayed. The collateral family members were also shocked by Zhang Baitao. When they came to themselves, they hurriedly cried, "Young master, you're finally back." Chapter 56. Zhang Baitao didn't dare to think too much about it. He pulled a clansman to his feet and shouted with bloodshot eyes, "What the hell is going on?" The clansman was shocked by Zhang Baitao's reaction. He said incoherently, "Master and second young master are both dead. Many people died in that battle. The blood condensation realm hanger-ons are all dead, and many of the Zhang family's elites are also dead." Hearing this, Zhang Baitao's eyes showed a look of disbelief. He shouted, "How could father and brother die? What the hell is going on? Who did it?" Before the clansman could say anything, Tao Zongwang and the other big forces of Shanyang Prefecture walked in. After knowing that Zhang Baitao was back, they didn't dare to go too far. They immediately returned all the properties of the Zhang family. However, the money and other financial assets had been divided among them. Even if they returned them now, they wouldn't be able to calculate the total amount. So they could only give up for the time being. Zhang Baitao suddenly turned around and grabbed the ancient bronze sword on his back. He said coldly with his bloodshot eyes, "Everyone, I want an explanation. What the hell happened to the Zhang family?" In Zhang Baitao's view, with the Zhang family's strength in Shanyang Prefecture, there were only a few families that could destroy the Zhang family. Tao Zongwang smiled bitterly. "Young Master Zhang, please calm down. The destruction of the Zhang family really had nothing to do with us." Tao Zongwang told Zhang Baitao everything. Of course, he didn't mention that they divided the properties of the Zhang family. Tao Zongwang spread his hands and revealed a helpless expression. "Young Master Zhang, the Zhang family is also a member of my Shanyang Prefecture. We also wanted to keep the Zhang family from being exterminated, but Chu Xiu was able to kill your father. I also exchanged blows with him. He was indeed very strong, so we didn't dare to act blindly without thinking, so in the end, we could only let him go." Chu Xiu. Zhang Baitao gnashed his teeth and spat out these 2 words. Everyone on the scene could even hear Zhang Baitao's teeth chattering. It was not hard to imagine how much he hated Chu Xiu now. Just at this moment, Zhang Baitao actually slashed out with his sword. The tip of the sword was like a bolt of lightning, carrying with it the might of a thunderbolt as it chopped towards a middle-aged cultivator beside Tao Zongwang. Ba Mountain Night Rain. Purple Lightning Thunder. The Ba Mountain Sword Sect's 8-character sword scripture had evolved into 8 powerful sword techniques. Right now, the Purple Lightning Azure Light sword that Zhang Baitao was using was as fast as lightning, and had reached initial success. No one expected that Zhang Baitao would suddenly make a move. Only Tao Zongwang hurriedly raised the Zamadeo in his hand and blocked in front of Zhang Baitao with the heavy long blade. However, Tao Zongwang's hands were directly numbed by the sword, and his face revealed a shocked expression. The legend said that when the Ba Mountain Sword Sect's Purple Lightning Azure Light sword was cultivated to the extreme, it could summon the power of purple lightning on a rainy night. He had not believed it before, but now he did. "Master Zhang, I just said that the Zhang family's matter has nothing to do with us. Do you want to take your anger out on the entire Mountain Sun Prefecture? Tao Zongwang said unkindly. No matter how strong the Ba Mountain Sword sect was, it was only in West Chu. This was Northern Yen. Zhang Baitao pointed at the middle-aged man and said hatefully, "It's because of that slut, Lin Xinyu, that my Zhang family provoked Chu Xiao. Back then, I told my younger brother that that woman's thoughts ran too deep. If he married her, my Zhang family wouldn't have peace. In the end, my Zhang family provoked such a disaster because of that slut." This middle-aged man was Lin Xinyu's father, the master of the Lin family. Right now, he wanted to cry. If Zhang Baichen had not pestered Lin Xinyu all day, how could things have reached this stage? Tao Zongwang gave the master of the Lin family a look, telling him to leave quickly. Now, Zhang Baitao was already furious. Not to mention that this matter itself had something to do with your daughter. Even if it really had nothing to do with her, Zhang Baitao was obviously ready to vent his anger on someone. The master of the Lin family fled in panic. Tao Zongwang shook his head at Zhang Baitao and said, "Master Zhang, even if you kill him, it is useless. The dead cannot come back to life. As long as you are alive, the Zhang family will be alive. In the future, the Mountain Sun Prefecture's Zhang family will depend on you. Get over it." Zhang Baitao raised his head abruptly. His eyes were wide open and bloodshot. His originally handsome face was now distorted beyond recognition. "How can I let go of the hatred of killing my father and exterminating my clan? Master Tao, I don't want the Zhang family's property anymore. I just want to know Chu Xiu's strength and his whereabouts." Zhang Baitao was not his idiot brother. Thinking of the flustered expression on Tao Yi's face when he saw him, he clearly knew what this group of people had done after the Zhang family was destroyed. But he did not care about this anymore. His father was dead, and his brother was also dead. What was the point of keeping the Zhang family? The only obsession in his heart now was revenge. Tao Zongwang thought about it and finally shook his head with some embarrassment. "Master Zhang, of course, revenge is necessary, but I still hope that you can think about it carefully. Chu Xiu's strength is unfathomable. I once fought with him. Although we were evenly matched on the surface, if we really fight, I don't have a great chance of winning. Also, we are not very clear about his whereabouts. Our men only saw him go in the direction of Luyang Mountain. If he goes further, he will not be in the Mountain Sun Prefecture's sphere of influence. Also, we dare not follow him anymore." Zhang Baitao waved his hand absent-mindedly and let them all leave. Now he just wanted revenge, but the result was that he could not even find his enemy. Even if he found him, it was not certain whether he could kill him. As a member of the Shanyang Prefecture, although Zhang Baitao had not returned to the Shanyang Prefecture for a few years, he was still aware of Tao Zongwang's strength. If Tao Zongwang had no confidence in winning against him, the chances of him winning would not be high either. Northern Yen was not Bashu. If it was in Bashu, he would ask his master to use the name of the Ba Mountain Sword sect to find people. Chu Xiu would not be able to escape. But this was Northern Yen. Their Zhang family had some fame in the Mountain Sun Prefecture, but in the Linzhong Commandery, they were barely in the middle. In all of Northern Yen, the Zhang family's strength could only be said to be unranked. Zhang Baitao looked at the sword in his hand. He could choose to return to the Ba Mountain Sword sect to cultivate in seclusion and come back for revenge after his strength increased. Or he could work hard to improve his position in the Ba Mountain Sword sect, and then use the power of the Ba Mountain Sword sect for revenge. But all of this needed time. His father and brother's bodies were still warm. How could he have the mind to cultivate and work hard? Suddenly, Zhang Baitao thought of something. He seemed to know a person in Northern Yen. Although he was not familiar with him, the power behind that person was enough to help him get revenge even if he only used a little bit of it. That person was the young master of the righteous manor of the 6 great gangs, Ling Yun, bringing rain Nye Dong Lu. There were countless forces in the Jianghu. The songs of the Jianghu made by wind-sweeping tower called the 6 great gangs the 6 gangs of people harmony. So the 6 great gangs were also called the 6 gangs of people harmony. They did not have the right time, nor did they have the geographical advantage. The only thing they were good at was harmony. The 6 great gangs were born in the wilderness, but they all had a large number of disciples. Although there were many with mediocre talent, there were some extremely talented people in each generation who could support the whole gang. The largest wind organization in the Jianghu, Wind Sweeping Tower, was also one of the 6 gangs of people harmony. If there were not enough people, they could not support such a huge wind organization. Of course, Wind Sweeping Tower was still tactful and did not rank themselves too high in the Jianghu songs. After all, in terms of martial strength, Wind Sweeping Tower could only be considered as the lowest existence among the 6 gangs of people harmony. Although the strength of the righteous manor was only considered average among the 6 gangs of people harmony, it had the best reputation. In the past, the righteous manor was just a small broken temple. 30 years ago, there were 5 young masters in the Jianghu who swore to punish evil and kill evil. 10 years later, these 5 young masters were already quite famous in the Jianghu. They worked together to kill the evil Dao's old devil Sikong Fong and became famous all over the world. 20 years later, the small broken temple had become a famous righteous manor in the Jianghu. Some Jianghu people who were born in the wilderness admired the righteous manor and came to join them. 30 years later, the righteous manor had become one of the 6 gangs of people harmony. It was a righteous sect with tens of thousands of warriors in the manor. There were also countless Jianghu people who admired the righteous manor and came to visit. The righteous manor also received them. There was even a rule in the righteous manor. As long as the visitors brought the heads of the villains in the Jianghu, they could exchange them for gold, silver, or even cultivation resources. The righteous manor did not reject anyone. This action made the righteous manor famous in the Jianghu and was praised by the righteous Jianghu. Unfortunately, 4 of the 5 young masters who had gathered at the morgue had died due to various accidents. The only one who was still alive was the master of the morgue, a famous master of the righteous path in Jianghu, turning over the clouds Nye Ren Long. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.